Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. Dear Death. Dear Death. Hello, old friend. I would be amiss if I called you a stranger now, as the frequency of your visits in my life have made us more than acquaintances. It has been years since our first run-in together. When I met you, I didn't understand. You were a being within yourself, a standalone, vital force that I didn't recognize for what you really stood for. Your introduction to me preceded the death of my grandpa on September 24th, 1998. The mighty being that he was, the biggest form of life I knew, was ripped from me, and you were the thief that came in and stole him. He lived a long life, I was told, satisfied, and a job well done. But as I heard these things, none of them gave me comfort. Silently, I began to develop distrust. You made me weary of so many things, of bonds formed with those around me, of meaningful, lasting love that would carry me through hardships, and of you, death itself, and that you could take from me in an instant what life had freely given me to experience. I was only 13 years old, but I knew you were someone I needed to always watch out for. That you would be there even while I smiled and enjoyed life and the moments it actually made me smile. I thought we wouldn't meet again for years to come. I thought I had given enough of my heart to you when I was a child to buy my way through years of togetherness with those that I loved. I thought my heartache was payment enough, but you had other plans. September 6th, 2020. The eldest of my grandfather's children, his only baby girl, was taken. You started with a queen. I must tell you, and her death hit me hard. My auntie was the most thoughtful, caring, most, even if I don't have my life together, I'm going to look out for you, most amazing woman I have ever known. She was loud, boisterous, fun-loving, but would teach you a well-needed lesson. She was the oldest of all boys, so she was tough. Yet, even she was no match for you and your exploits. You took her from us and never looked back. June 27th, 2021. I learned my first lesson on how unfair you could be. My 12-year-old cousin was snatched away so fast by you. None of us seen it coming. For the first time in my life, I saw a mother so broken by her grief she could barely speak. A father so lost without his son he could barely stand before the casket that held him and say goodbye. But most of all, your grim visit showed me that no matter how much I loved my children, or tried to protect them from the harsh realities of the life, when it really mattered, my love couldn't save them from you. No amount of protecting them in the world would keep them from your grasp when you decided to whisk through my life and take them or someone else I love. November 1st, 2022. You sought me out in the worst of ways. You knew all too well my fears and panic over the remote possibility of me losing one of my children. Knew all too well that it would destroy me. Opening the door to my daughter's room that day, I walked into my nightmare, made my reality. Death, you take many a soul, every night, always there to absorb the essence of those we lose. So I know you heard my whispered words in the night. I know you knew, down to the fiber of your being, my worst fear. I know you knew my truth as deep and as well as I did. So when realized, you took my daughter, another bright light that those around me, who have nothing else to offer as comfort, will say was a life gone too soon. It solidified my ill thoughts of you, that you didn't play fair, that you took every opportunity to fight dirty. My daughter, one piece of my tattered heart that I managed to birth and have walk around personified, flesh and blood. You take her, and not me. You felt, as you always do, that it was time, that she had done all she was here to do, and that again, it was a job well done, and she no longer had to face a world where depression and sadness touched her. The traumas she experienced and always took her mind to a place where I couldn't reach her would never again have her lost. Here, I have to be honest with you, Death. As much as I hate to even say your name, I am overjoyed that the ugliness of life can never reach her again. But I needed more time. 15 years will never be enough. I look for her in the moon, as I know you walked her toward it. However, I will forever say, you're unfair. She was my glue, that kid that kept us all together. She was just finding her smile, her real smile, just finding a reason beyond me, as she told me, to live her life to the fullest. You took her little sister's person, and the one she talked to all the time, her brother's game partner, whom he discovered new levels on soul caliber with, her big sister's binge show watcher, and how they could watch whole seasons together in one night. her father's favorite, and how he doted on her. Her mama number two's confidant, and how she helped her realize it was okay to love herself. You took my partner in crime, my me and you against it all, if you will. The one who would make me smile, even when the world sought out my tears. Shame on you. In losing her, I lost myself. And I have no one else to blame but you. How dare you take my child from me? Have you not taken enough in your time with me? From your time with everyone? From the unexpected parents who should never have to bury their children, or the children you've orphaned? Has your roster not been filled with mothers and fathers, beloved aunts or favorite uncles? My daughter's name was too pure to be added to your list. And as the world moved on, going back to the daily hustle and bustle, I'm here stuck in the moment. You ripped my sanity to shreds, and in the far reaches of my mind, I can hear the echoes of your laughter. And I know you feel pleasure in the grief you leave in your wake. That is when all the "I'm here if you need me's" or the "call me anytimes" slow down, and the quiet nights last longer than you ever imagined they could last. I always come back to you. I think about how you have visited me so many times just to destroy my peace and disrupt my every day. The day you took my daughter, you took a piece of me too, and you have left me forever, grasping at the dark threads of your coattails, trying to hold on to the part of me you are trying to take, my grip constantly slipping, but I can't let go. To let go of you would mean I lose my grasp on her. The only thing that pulled me through was my support system that surrounded me and helped me recover from your violent breeze of a visit. Your homecomings always come with tears and loss. I'm finally coming to realize. August 11th, 2023. You paid me a visit once again, but this time I expected you. The cancer that ravished my uncle's body and had him giving up on life were signs that alerted me. You weren't far behind. Out of the 7 uncles I have, he was my favorite. When I came out and introduced the family to my now wife, he was the one who protected me from judgment and harsh words. Any problem with me had to go through him first, and he accepted me even before my father told me he loved me still. We could talk about anything, and we did. We talked about religion, life, politics, love, relationships, and more. There was never any judgment. My whole life, he loved me for me. Yet again, you decided we had enough of the mighty presence he exuded, and you snuffed his light out after a long, hard-fought battle. The only solace I take in his passing is that he no longer has to go through that pain, And I suppose, deep down, if I'm honest, I should thank you for that. But that's where my thanks for you ends. Death. If you're still with me, I promise I'll tell you why. I had the honor for 39 years to have a man in my life who stood through it all. A man who, no matter what the test that was thrown at him, he found a way to make it work. How he stood tall against adversity. Who made sure he built and had the foundation to bring to any table. A man who showed up whenever called upon. Who had so much wisdom that he imparted, whether you wanted him to or not, and always did it with love. And it was exactly what you needed to hear. I had the pleasure of calling this man my father. When I seen him when he lost his own father, I watched him put his grief to the side to stand tall for his sister and brothers. How I seen him tuck his fear of you, death, and stand in the place you had just removed his father from and lead his family. When I seen this, I seen a mighty, strong man that stood against it all, including you, to make a way for his entire family. Not just his children, but for his brothers, wife, and anyone he came into contact with. He exuded strength in a way that made even you, death, stand still, if only for a while. For as you always do, you creeped and snaked your way in and preyed on most anyone's worst fear, losing the ones they love. You always find a way to strike when our defenses are down and our hearts are at their fullest. My father's strength is what I always leaned on, what I drew from. When I was weak, he poured his strength into me, even if he didn't know it. Whenever I called for him, he showed up, no questions asked. It was this example he set for me that allows me to show up for my children in the same way. When I needed my father, he was more to me than anyone could ever be. Yet the smile that man brought to my face shined too bright for you to know that he was one of the main reasons I survived. You selfishly taking my daughter from me. To know he poured so much life into me, even though you had tried your hardest to break me. To know that I no longer have that strength to call upon has broken me in a way I never knew a person could break. I see you relish in the pain you cause as you unfairly take the children of strangers, mothers who have lost their young ones, just like me. You make me know them in a way I never would understand, unless I too, like them, have you as a friend. We know you're toxic, but we're stuck with you, attached for the rest of our lives. I never wanted to know them, or you like this. The next year, I began to unbend myself, for what had been meant to destroy me didn't, although it definitely bent me almost to my breaking point. I became complacent and comfortable, taking for granted phone calls and visits with those I held dear, thinking I had those moments in abundance. I became forgetful of the power and pain you wielded so freely and without favorites, because I hadn't seen you for over 365 days. I relaxed enough to think, I can finally breathe. It hurts, and it's labored, and feel like needles poke me with every intake, but I can take a breath, and it feels like I never have before. 2024 for me was a year of realization, reckoning, redirection, and remembrance. And I must admit, the embedded hate I constantly feel for you, the fear of you that I always have on the back burner of my mind, took a back seat to my goals and achievements, and my planning to make things better for me and my family, and do them to honor my daughter's memory. It was a time for promises made and kept, to do better for her than I had been doing in the time since she'd been gone. For I had lost myself for a long time because of your thievery. When I lost her, I lost a large part of who I was, and I spent months on an alcoholic whirlwind. It was my father who finally broke through my hazy merry-go-round with his love and understanding and words of wisdom and support. I'm 39, and I still have yet to make a single decision without him. His opinion has always held a heavy weight in what I decide to do, no matter how big or small the decision. To you, however, my decisions are irrelevant and null in void. For you decided, once again, that I'd had enough. And when you decide things, your decisions come with such finality. I'm starting to understand that you see our fears and they empower you. You made me realize, in real time, one of my worst fears. And yet, not even a full 3 years from the date I lost my baby, and you took the air form my lungs, you're still searching the inner reaches of my being for more, saying gleefully to yourself, who else is she scared of losing that I can take and watch how she crumbles? On January 27th, 2025, my pillar of strength, my Papachu, my Superman, breathed his last breath. He kissed my mother on her cheek, told her he loved her, waited until he was alone with you, and followed you onto the abyss. How can he be gone? He's Superman. I assume you were his kryptonite. He knew he was close and felt you hovering. But he knew all too well our fear of losing someone else, and that fear of you hurting us again kept him quiet. You stole his voice, and he couldn't let us know his true pain, although I didn't think I would see you again for years to come. When I felt you this time around, you were like a fragrance in the air that I recognized instantly. I hate that you are so familiar to me. You took my daddy. How could you? When I got the call carrying the worst news I could hear, I knew it was because of you before a word was spoken. You, death, have left me truly on my own in this world, with this constant, pulsing, alive, reverberating fear of your next coming, and who you will take this time. I don't even know if I fear you anymore. More so, I now expect you to unexpectedly, without any preparation on my part, will float through my life and etch notches in me as if I were a wall measuring the continued growth of a child. You have shattered my already broken heart into a million pieces, and all I can manage is this plea, death. I plead with you. Let us once again become strangers. Let us become so distant. The thought of remembrance between us is alien. I want to know you no more. Flee from me and touch not any more of those I love. I have given enough of my heart as payment for the bonds I've created, and you have severed. Please sail away on the ocean of tears. You have forced me to cry and never return to me. Signed, your well-known, but very reluctant and unwilling friend, Khalees, the unspoken relative. The door to the interrogation room creaked open. A girl was inside, still in the depths of REM sleep, did not stir. Sleep was all she had, her only escape and only therapy from her current fate. She remained curled up on top of the table like a feline, conserving her energy before the hellhounds would be turned loose on her. Haley, a psychiatrist, made her way into the room. She could see the subject. Emily had insomniac circles around her eyes that made her look like a raccoon almost. Haley felt bad for having to wake her, but if Emily wanted sleep, she would need to talk at some point. She reached out and took Emily's hands in hers. They were cold and clammy. Emily emitted a faint whimper, but her eyes remained closed. Haley let go of her hands and brushed Emily's hair. Emily stirred, and her eyes sluggishly opened. Her dark eyes, with saucers for pupils, studied the green emeralds Haley had for eyes. They remained still, watching, then closed again. "Come on, hun. Time to get up." Haley spoke, lightly shaking her. Emily whimpered and covered her face with her arms. Haley stood and scooped her off the table. She expected a fight, but Emily remained docile in her grasp. Before Haley could put her down, Emily clung to her and rested her head on Haley's shoulder. It was difficult to imagine Emily was capable of what the police were accusing her of. Emily was acting more like an 8-year-old than 18. That could be cracked up to the recent traumatic experience she endured. She had recently learned who her real father was, after he took her mother, and stepfather hostage. Her mother was currently recovering from injuries in the hospital, while her stepfather had succumbed to his injuries. Emily wailed suddenly, catching Haley off guard. The reaction was so sudden that Haley almost dropped her. "Honey," Emily buried her face in Haley's chest, with heaving sobs that made her tremble all over. Haley rubbed her back and comforted her, something that Emily never got from anyone since they found her in the house. She had passed out with the landline phone still in her grasp, with a split table beneath her that broke her fall. Haley had a job to do here, however, and that was not to comfort a possible suspect. Haley gently pried her off and sat Emily down in a chair. "I'm going to be honest," Haley began. "They suspect you conspired with your father." All the melanin drained from Emily's skin. This couldn't be happening. She quickly shook her head in denial. Emily strained herself, attempting to protest, but her voice cracked, and her words died in her throat. "You may want to see this," Haley said, handing her a tablet. A frightened moan escaped her mouth when the video started playing. When Emily learned the truth, she attacked and interrogated her stepfather in the basement for putting a wool over her eyes, while her real father was otherwise engaged upstairs. And now, law enforcement suspected she was hiding her father's whereabouts. They intended to use this footage as leverage against her if she refused to cooperate. Her knees drew up to her chest as reality washed over her. His blood was on her hands too, whether she liked it or not. But this didn't mean that she conspired with her father. They needed to know that. Emily tried to speak again, but like before, her words could not reach the surface. Like baby sea turtles being plucked away by famished seagulls before reaching the ocean, words still eluded her. She buried her face in her hands, sighing shakily. Haley placed a small notebook before her along with a pencil. Emily sniffled and started to write. "So, he took your cuffs off for good behavior?" Haley asked. Emily nodded. "And after you found out the truth, you became angry with your stepfather?" Emily replied with a reluctant nod. She wrote her next question with a trembling hand. "There's nothing I can do to avoid prison, is there?" Emily pushed the notebook over to Haley, with tears starting to trickle down her face again. "You can tell me where he is," Haley said. Emily whimpered in frustration. "I don't know where he is, because I did not conspire with him," she wrote. "It's not up to me on what happens to you," Haley began. "But you need to give them something if you wish to avoid prison. Even if you didn't conspire with him, you still assaulted your stepfather, who is now dead." Emily huffed and snatched the notebook. "My father's gun killed him, not me," she wrote. "You stabbed your stepfather with a fork. He already had a severed leg and a missing finger. which I believe had his wedding ring on it. You very well could have. Do you think a jury would let you go free after that? Emily choked back a sob. I'm sorry, hun. I know you were under a great deal of stress, but that still does not excuse your actions. He's one of my teachers in high school, okay? Mr. Black is what he goes by. I'm sure that's how he found out that I was his daughter. Emily wrote, Okay, maybe that will help them find him. Anything else? Haley asked. Please, I need to be there for my mom, so she pulls through. Emily wrote, I'll see what they think about this. Haley said, taking the notebook with her. But after what you did to your stepfather, I doubt you'll be allowed to see your mother in the hospital. It's for her own safety. Emily's face fumed in disbelief at what she heard. With that, Haley left her to sit alone with her thoughts. 2. When the sheriff entered the interrogation room, Emily's heart sank like an anchor to the depths. She sheepishly wiped her tears away with her sleeves. Save your crocodile tears for another day, his eyes said. You'll be held at a local hotel under house arrest till your court date, the sheriff said, attaching a tracker to her ankle. You can use the phone inside the motel to call your mother in the hospital. Perhaps that will help you find your voice again. Better pray you find it by your court date. He continued, escorting her out. 3. On court day, her mother was not well enough to attend. However, she was thankfully still alive and recovering. Emily quietly sat next to her appointed lawyer. The judge and jury were informed that, due to the events Emily had been through, she had trouble speaking, and her lawyer would speak for her. They had given her a notebook and pen to use to communicate as well. Emily was prepared to own up to what she did, however. The crowd was certainly a surprise, which threw her off. She hoped it stemmed from curiosity about her father, rather than hatred towards her. She nervously watched as the judge made his way to the podium. He was an older gentleman with a horseshoe mustache that commanded respect. A man with true grit that would not hesitate to punish any poor soul that dared question his authority. To the full extent of the law, he despised any scumbag attorney that would willingly fight for a defendant that was obviously guilty. Emily could not tell what his initial impression was of her just yet. Take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be mindful of the jury and the defendant. Keep y'all's voices down so they can hear themselves think. The judge spoke as the jury filed in. Emily reluctantly turned to see who her selected peers would be. 6 women of varying ages filed in first. Perhaps she had a chance of being shown mercy after all. 6 men followed, and suddenly her throat felt deprived of oxygen, and her eyes dilated like saucers. The word escaped her lips, and she quickly covered her mouth with both hands. But the room had grown silent as a Buddhist temple. It was too late. What was that, miss? The judge spoke, making her flinch. Emily quickly turned away from the jury and spoke, for what felt like the first time in weeks. Nothing. Sorry. She spoke with an awkward rise in her voice. Mind repeating what you said a moment ago? I was under the impression that you didn't speak. The judge said, "Objection, Your Honor." Her attorney stepped in. Overruled. You were saying, miss? The judge spoke. Emily swallowed hard, and her skin was as crimson as a lobster. Much like a lobster, she was in hot water now as well. Do you want to be held in contempt for lying to the court about your condition? The judge asked. No, I'm not, she hiccuped. Lying. Enlighten me on how you did not lie to the court, miss. The judge pressed. Your Honor, I made it clear she has difficulty speaking, and that she is, or in this case, was temporarily mute. The key word was temporarily. Her attorney spoke. Clearly, she speak for herself now, mister. Now would you or she care to repeat what her first spoken word was, so we can move forward with this case? The judge replied, Objection, Your Honor. Her attorney spoke before Emily placed her hand on his wrist. Overruled. The judge spoke to him. Please, Emily said to her attorney before standing to face the judge. I saw someone that looked like my dad. That's all. I'm mistaken, obviously. But it took me by surprise. So, we have it on record. Repeat the exact word you spoke for me, miss. I will not ask you again. The judge said, Daddy, that's what I said. I was mistaken. Sorry, Your Honor. Emily spoke meekly. Why don't you point out the individual you mistook for him? Would you kindly? The judge spoke. A small trickle ran between her legs, and Emily winced, hating herself. In fact, why don't we show everyone what her father looks like? Shall we? The judge said. And a projector flashed a picture of Mr. Black on the wall behind him. This is the man responsible for the death of Emily's stepfather and for her mother, who is currently in hospice care. What we are here for currently, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is to figure out whether Emily knows of his whereabouts, and two, whether she conspired with him against her stepfather. The judge spoke. Now isn't that a load of horse shit? A voice cackled. A man in the jury stood, and Emily's fears were confirmed. His disguise could fool most, but not her. You think she's capable of this? Hell, she couldn't even keep it together when she caught a glance of my face. Mr. Black laughed, pressing his revolver against another juror, urging them to walk up with him. The police officers and security guards all drew their weapons, but Mr. Black revealed his own weapon that was strapped to his chest. There was a rise of panic from the bystanders and the jury. Enough! The judge roared, and the crowd simmered down. As the Joker once said, let's not blow this out of proportion. I'll only take a moment of your time, one way or another. Mr. Black said, You've got balls showing your face around here. The judge spoke. I'm just here to make sure an innocent person doesn't go to jail. Lord knows the law has a way of fucking that up. Mr. Black replied. "I propose an exchange then. You go to jail while she goes free. That, I reckon, is how it should have been all along." The judge said, "Ha! You should go on stage and see how far that joke gets ya." Mr. Black cackled. "What's the plan here? What's your end game?" The judge asked. "It's simple. If you all want to live, you let us leave quietly. Remember, the juror I replaced is elsewhere, awaiting your assistance," Mr. Black said. The judge, a veteran from the war in Afghanistan, recognized the bomb Mr. Black had strapped to his chest. It was capable of taking out a whole block. Everyone inside this building would be cooked like a Thanksgiving turkey when all was said and done. "Drop y'all's weapons," the judge ordered. The officers followed suit. "Let's be on our way, Emily." Mr. Black spoke. A frightened moan escaped her mouth. She had no idea her father was capable of this. He would be labeled as a terrorist in the news. There was no coming back from that. "Don't waste my time, sweetheart," Mr. Black hissed, pressing his revolver against the juror's forehead. Emily whimpered and reluctantly stood up. "Can you tell me where the other juror is before you go?" the judge asked. "Good man," Mr. Black said, opening the door to the judge's quarters. Through there was a quick exit to the parking lot. "I left a note with an address under my juror seat. If anyone stops me, that place will blow too," Mr. Black said. Emily gagged as her nerves started getting the better of her. This was all too much to take in. But Mr. Black tugged her inside by the collar of her shirt, urging her to keep moving, and they ran to the exit door. Outside, there were 2 cars waiting for them. Mr. Black shoved his hostage to the floor and slammed the door shut behind him. Emily eyed both cars in confusion. She yelped when she felt something hot sting her arm. Emily looked up at her father as everything around her grew brighter. "Why?" she whimpered. "Can't risk you having second thoughts," Mr. Black replied with a wink, removing the small needle from her arm. Emily was too weak to resist when he laid her down in the back seat of a Chrysler 300. He rode in a different car, and she passed out before they drove away. 4. Emily awoke with a start in what felt like another lifetime. She was cocooned in a hammock, ready to hatch into a new life, it seemed. Her sluggish eyes registered a clustered forest of coconut palms around her, and a man sitting at a nearby table. He wore a straw hat and was sipping on a pina colada. "Welcome back," Mr. Black said. The ocean was a shimmering shade of teal in the sunlight, roaring in the distance. "Is Mom okay?" Emily slurred. "She'll be fine," Mr. Black said, "but she'll need her distance for some time before she forgives us." Echoes in the dark. Michelle Byers woke to the hum of the oxygen machine and the sterile white glow of hospital lights. She had survived the crash. Her husband, Daniel, had not. They told her she had been unconscious for days, and in those days, the world had stolen her sense of normalcy. Recovery was grueling. Her body ached, but her mind suffered more. The doctors diagnosed her with narcolepsy, an after effect of the trauma. She struggled to distinguish wakefulness from the strange visions that plagued her. But nothing prepared her for what came next. Chapter 1. Fractured Pieces. The house felt empty without Daniel. Michelle moved through the rooms like a ghost herself, touching the furniture, the framed photographs, the tiny details of a life that had once been whole. Every object felt sacred, preserved in time, but also hollow without him. Then the strange things began happening. The first time, she thought she was imagining it. She walked into the kitchen one morning to find Daniel's favorite coffee mug on the counter. It wasn't just there. It was filled exactly as he would have made it. 3 sugars, 2 splashes of cream. She froze. Her breath came in quick, shallow bursts. She reached out with a trembling hand and touched the ceramic. It was warm. Did I do this? She whispered to herself. She had no recollection of making the coffee. She dumped it in the sink, trying to push away the nagging thought clawing at the back of her mind. That night, she checked Daniel's drawer, the one where she had placed his watch, his wedding ring, his last belongings. The watch was gone. She searched frantically. Through the drawers, through the entire bedroom, the nightstand, the closet. Nothing. Lack of sleep, she muttered. That's all this is. But then the voicemails started. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past. One evening, as she walked into the living room, the red light on the answering machine blinked. It was an old relic, something Daniel had insisted on keeping despite her protests about just using their cell phones. She pressed play. Hey, love. Just letting you know I'll be home late. Don't wait up. Her breath hitched. His voice, crisp and casual, like it always had been. Like he wasn't dead. Her legs buckled, and she collapsed onto the couch, pressing her hands to her mouth. She checked the timestamp. The message had been left yesterday. She deleted it. An error it had to be, but it happened again and again, every few nights. The same message, with slightly different wording. Sometimes it was just a simple, love you, see you soon. She played one for her friend Angela. Angela's face paled. This is some sick joke. I swear, I'm not making this up. Angela reached for her hand. Michelle, this isn't healthy. Maybe it's your condition. Your doctor said hallucinations are possible with narcolepsy. Michelle recoiled. You think I'm imagining this? Angela hesitated. I think grief can do strange things. And you haven't been sleeping. Michelle didn't argue. What was there to say? She made an appointment with her doctor, who prescribed sleeping pills to help regulate her sleep cycles. Chapter 3. The Stranger in the Coffee Shop. For weeks, the house was quiet. No misplaced objects, no strange messages. It was almost as if By sleeping more, she had sealed whatever crack had let the past bleed into the present. Then she saw him. She was at a small cafe downtown, sipping on chamomile tea, staring blankly at her phone. It was an overcast afternoon, a steady drizzle coating the streets outside in shimmering gray. The bell over the door jingled, and a figure stepped inside. Her breath stopped in her throat. Daniel, sitting at a table near the window, laughing, his eyes crinkling in that way they always had. A woman sat across from him, stirring her coffee. Michelle's heart pounded as she stood, nearly knocking over her cup. She stumbled toward the door, her vision tunneling. Outside, the streets were a mess of honking cars, sloshing tires, and blurred figures. She tried to cross, barely noticing the screech of brakes and a driver shouting at her as she nearly stepped in front of a cab. By the time she made it to the other side, Daniel was gone. She pressed her hands to the cafe window, her breath fogging up the glass. No, 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 no. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone and called Angela. "He's alive," she gasped. "Angela, I swear to God, I just saw him." Angela's voice was strained. "Michelle, that's impossible. I saw him," she screamed, drawing the attention of pedestrians. She turned, scanning the street wildly. No sign of him. Chapter 4. The cracks in reality. When she got home, the silence of the house felt like it was pressing down on her. She sat on the couch, her hands gripping her knees. Had she really seen Daniel? Was she losing her grip on reality? As exhaustion pulled at her, she drifted into a restless sleep. And then a sound, footsteps, familiar, slow. Moving toward the bedroom, her heart pounded as she forced herself up. The house was dark, the air thick with something unspoken. She crept toward the bedroom, every step feeling heavier than the last. She pushed open the door. Nothing. Her breath came in ragged gobs. She turned on the light. The room was empty. Just her mind playing tricks again. She sat on the bed, tears burning her eyes. What's happening to me? Then her phone rang. She snatched it up, hands shaking. Mom? Honey? Her mother's voice was soft. I just wanted to check on you. I'm not okay, Michelle whispered. Mom, I saw him. I saw Daniel. Her mother hesitated. Michelle, you know we talked about this before. You and Daniel discussed his wishes in case something happened. You don't remember? A cold wave washed over her. No, we never had that conversation. Her mother sighed. And what about your trip to the lake house last summer? The one he planned? The words stuck in her throat. That never happened. Did it? Then she noticed something else. Her hands. They were different. The faint scar from childhood. Gone. The calluses from her years of playing piano. Missing. Her reflection in the bedroom mirror flickered for a second. An almost imperceptible glitch. as though the pixels themselves struggled to keep her image in place. Then the bedroom door creaked open. Footsteps, familiar, a shadow in the doorway. "Michelle," the voice whispered, her pulse stilled. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned and saw herself standing there, watching. The world cracked apart. Darkness swallowed her whole. When Michelle awoke, the room looked the same, but wrong. The pictures on the wall were slightly different. Her wedding photo with Daniel now showed them standing in front of a place they had never been. The color of the curtains had changed. Her phone no longer recognized her face. She stumbled to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and gasped. The reflection stared back with blank eyes. Her face, similar, yet unfamiliar. Sharper jaw, eyes a shade too light, skin too smooth. The scar on her collarbone from the skiing accident years ago was gone. A mechanical voice echoed faintly from her phone behind her. "System error. Biometric mismatch. Please verify user identity." She backed away from the mirror, from the glass that shimmered like liquid for half a second, as if the world was re-rendering itself in real time. She opened drawers, desperate for something familiar, something hers. But the clothes weren't hers. The books on her shelf bore her name as the author, only she'd never written them. The covers depicted surreal scenes, cities made of bone, people with stitched smiles, hollow-eyed children staring up at crimson moons. She ran outside. The street was there, but so quiet. The sky above was bruised purple, the clouds tinged with red. No birds, no wind. Every person she passed moved too slowly, their limbs jerky, robotic. They didn't blink, didn't speak, didn't see her. Michelle walked in a daze, her breath fogging in the warm air. The newsstand still had papers, but the headlines made her stomach twist. Temporal leak worsens. Memory replacements imminent. Global consciousness sync delayed. Users report phantom lives. Version control glitch detected. Subject 487. M. Byers. Flagged for recalibration. Subject. She turned to flee, but froze when she saw the cafe. The same cafe where she'd seen Daniel weeks ago. And there he was again, laughing, alive. Wrong. Sitting across from someone with her face. The other, Michelle, turned, and their eyes met. The world paused. A buzzing started low in her ears, rising to a high-pitched shriek. The people froze mid-step. The air shimmered. The other Michelle stood slowly and began to walk toward her. Michelle backed up, stumbling into a metal pole. A nearby screen flickered to life, displaying the symbol of an eye with fractals radiating outward. Then, a voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere. "Welcome, Subject 487. Consciousness sync complete. Version displacement detected. Initiating purge. Michelle screamed, but there was no sound, only light. And then oblivion. Epilogue. Static. In a bright white room with no doors, Michelle sits at a desk. Her hands type furiously on a keyboard that glows with symbols she doesn't recognize. On the wall, a screen shows surveillance feeds, dozens of herselves navigating fractured realities, some crying, some lost, some laughing beside Daniel. A door finally opens behind her. A figure enters. It's her again. This time, dressed in clinical white, clipboard in hand. Her eyes are cold, unblinking. Reset failed. Clipboard Michelle says. They always fight it. Desk Michelle whispers. They remember too much. Clipboard. Michelle tilts her head. Try a deeper extraction next time. Desk. Michelle nods, tears streaking down her face. Which one is the real me? The clipboard falls to the floor. No answer. The light flickers. The room glitches. And somewhere, in another version of reality, a woman named Michelle Byers wakes up again. To the hum of an oxygen machine and the sterile white glow of hospital lights. Was it all a dream, or was this the dream? She doesn't know anymore, and maybe she never did. Lucid Dr. Mira Santos aligns her pen at a precise 90-degree angle to her notepad, then adjusts it to 89. Perfect precision matters. Her office presents an unbroken landscape of whites and grays, walls, furniture, even the spines of journals arranged by height on custom shelving. Her diplomas hang at measured intervals. Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins Fellowship, Stanford Neuropsychiatry. I keep having these dreams where pieces of myself are missing, Jamie Whitcomb explains, voice carrying an unsettling familiarity Mira can't place. Like someone tore pages from my story. She observes his hands as they animate his words. Index finger extended, thumb perpendicular. A gesture triggering a microsecond of déjà vu that she immediately classifies. Transient memory phenomenon. No clinical significance. Perhaps we could explore these gaps through guided imagery, she suggests, noting the clock. 2:37. I think my unconscious is getting tired of being ignored, Jamie says, meeting her eyes with unexpected directness. His fingers tap against his knee. Tap, tap, pause, tap. A rhythm that seems momentarily significant, then doesn't. You wrote something about this, actually. How the mind creates increasingly dramatic interventions when we persist in avoidance. Your work on trauma compartmentalization changed how I understand myself. Mira's hand pauses. Few patients research their therapists so thoroughly. She glances down and notices a blue smudge on her thumb that wasn't there moments ago. When not directly observed, it seems to shift slightly, like water finding its level. After Jamie leaves, she documents. Patient demonstrates unusual knowledge of practitioner's methodology. The words form in reassuring black ink. She categorizes the blue smudge. Stress-induced perceptual anomaly. Clinical terminology creates immediate distance. Safety through classification. Her calendar displays afternoon appointments with a precise rectangle marked personal reflection at 2:30 each day. Time methodically scheduled for not thinking about what happened. 300 days of structured avoidance. She notices blue ink spreading in tomorrow's reflection block. Jamie Whitcomb, second consultation. She has no memory of scheduling this. Dr. Chen appears in her doorway. Mira, you've scheduled during your personal time tomorrow. The patient required accommodation. She lies with clinical detachment. You haven't adjusted that time block in almost a year, he observes, eyes lingering on her hand, where the blue smudge seems to pulse with her heartbeat. Her apartment mirrors her professional space, meticulously organized in whites and grays. She moves efficiently through rooms systematically purged of memory. Each belonging serves logical purpose. Control through environmental precision. Her path includes a mathematically precise 60-degree turn at the hallway's end. Gaze sliding past the single disruption in her colorless sanctuary. A cerulean blue door she hasn't opened in 300 days. For a heartbeat, vanilla shampoo scent registers. Small fingers sticky with breakfast syrup. A child's laughter, like wind chimes. Pulse accelerates. Tachycardia, 97 beats per minute. Respiratory rate increased 18%. Diagnosis: acute stress response. Treatment: continued avoidance. She walks past, careful not to touch the blue. Mira prepares for Jamie's second session, straightening her already straight pens. The blue stain has spread overnight, now covering her palm entirely. She tugs her sleeve lower. Patient demonstrates unusual knowledge of practitioner's methodology, she writes. Possible prior envy. She stops. The words appear in blue ink despite her black pen. She selects another. Same result. Equipment. Malfunction. Statistically improbable. Perceptual anomaly. Equally unlikely. Classification. Inconclusive. When Jamie enters, the room temperature drops 3 degrees. Calibration error, surely. The clock's second hand stutters. Tick. Pause. Tick, tick. Stretching moments unnaturally. Mira's breath forms small clouds that hover before dissipating. I researched you, she says, professional tone brittle. Your contact information leads nowhere. Perhaps I don't exist within your acceptable parameters, Jamie replies, something shifting behind his eyes. His features seem unstable today. A 30-something stranger one moment, then briefly showing contours of a younger face. Isn't that your specialty, Dr. Santos? Creating parameters that exclude what hurts too much? The air carries a faint antiseptic smell, hospital corridors, grief-saturated waiting rooms, olfactory hallucination. Unlikely, but not impossible. You've built your career helping others face what you avoid, Jamie says, fingers forming that distinctive gesture, index extended, thumb perpendicular. In your article, you wrote about integration, but your office calendar tells a different story. Her diploma wavers when not directly observed. Doctor of Medicine briefly becoming Mother Who Wasn't, before snapping back when she focuses on it. Do you believe in astronomy, Dr. Santos? Jamie asks, voice suddenly higher-pitched. That stars remember us even when clouds block our view? Even when we're gone? Mira's pen freezes. Mid-note. A child had asked her a nearly identical question once. Coincidence? Statistically impossible. We should focus on your experiences, she attempts, but her voice falters. Like you focus during your personal reflection blocks? His eyes shift color momentarily, from brown to startling blue. The time you carefully schedule for not remembering, the antiseptic smell intensifies. Her bookcase blurs at the edges, white shelves rippling like water, book spines dissolving into hospital corridor signs, small hand in hers, warm against her palm. Blue wool sweater with wooden buttons she'd helped fasten. Vanilla shampoo. Mira blinks rapidly. Classification: intrusive memory fragment. Treatment: compartmentalization. The clinical term disintegrates in her mind. You're diagnosing yourself in the third person, Jamie observes, his voice oscillating between adult articulation and childlike directness. Does Harvard teach doctors to hide inside words when feelings get too big? The pen in her hand turns liquid, blue ink flowing across her fingers in tiny rivulets that form star-like patterns on her skin. When Jamie leaves, or did he simply fade, Mira attempts to reorient. She aligns her pen perpendicular to her notepad, but blue ink pools beneath it, refusing containment. Dr. Chen enters, without knocking. The room temperature normalizes instantly, but blue stains remain across her notes, her desk, her hands. The Wilkins consultation, he says with unusual directness. They've requested another therapist. Said you seemed elsewhere. I maintained appropriate clinical distance, she recites. Like you maintain distance from the children's ward? His tone softens. 300 days, Mira. I saw you outside the memorial wall yesterday. He studies her, colleague and friend, visibly conflicted. Remember Elliot at the fundraiser concert? That Chopin nocturne we practiced for weeks? Him turning pages with that perfect timing? Chen's fingers mimic playing piano keys. When I asked how he knew exactly when, he said, "The music tells me," Mira finishes, throat constricting. It gets ready to need more space. Chen places a blue folder on her desk. You told Phillips to compartmentalize grief. That's not what you taught before. The patient was mirroring your strategy. Chen interrupts gently. Look at your hands. The blue has spread past her wrists, pulsing with her heartbeat. That night, the blue door PULSES with its own tutha. Mira arrives for Jamie's third session to find him already seated. Today he wears a blue sweater with wooden buttons instead of his usual suit. Her office temperature has dropped 10 degrees overnight. Facility malfunction, she mutters, but her breath forms dense clouds. The second hand on her wall clock stutters. Tick, tick, stop, backward tick, then freezes at precisely 2:37. Your calendar has transformed, Jamie observes. Blue ink has spread across her appointment book, forming distinct patterns. The Big Dipper, Orion, constellations she once traced on a bedroom ceiling. Irregularity in the ink compu. The words disintegrate before she can complete them. Her diagnostic vocabulary suddenly foreign. Letters rearranging themselves, still trying to diagnose away what you feel? Jamie asks. His features shift. Adult one moment, then child's eyes, gazing from adult face, then small fingers emerging from suit sleeves. How's that working after 300 days? The antiseptic smell intensifies. Hospital-grade disinfectant, coffee from a nurse's station, vending machine cookies. Her cream walls ripple. Hospital corridor, green bleeding through, like watercolors on wet paper. Patient exhibits acute dissoc. She can't complete the word. The pen trembles between her fingers as blue ink pools on the page, forming tiny rivulets that flow toward her like seeking things. You taught me about grounding techniques, Jamie says, his voice shifting higher. The hand gesture again. Index extended, thumb perpendicular. When things feel overwhelming, find 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch. I never taught. Mira stops. She never met Jamie before 300 days ago. Statistical impossibility. Logical incongruence. Professional boundaries compromised. When things get scary, he continues, features now unmistakably childlike beneath adult bone structure. Find something solid to hold on to, like your hand when we crossed parking lots. Her bookcase dissolves completely, revealing hospital waiting area chairs. The leather beneath her fingertips becomes vinyl, cold, sterile. A water cooler gurgles in the corner where her ficus plant had been moments before. The clock face melts, numbers flowing into blue puddles. Her diplomas rearrange into memorial service programs. This represents functional. Clinical terminology evaporates mid-thought. Her desk transforms into the hospital admitting counter. where she'd stood precisely 300 days ago, still hiding inside Harvard vocabulary. Jamie's adult clothing now hangs from a child's frame. Blue sweater with sleeves rolled 6 times, pants puddling around small sneakers. Elliot's face now fully visible, only his eyes retaining adult knowledge. Does categorizing grief really make it go away? VANILLASHAPOO. Apple detangler. Chocolate milk breath. This isn't Her hands convulse, sending her pen spinning across the floor. This cannot. The pen bleeds blue across linoleum, spreading toward her in tributary patterns that form exact replicas of the constellation drawings from Elliot's bedroom ceiling. Rain hammers against glass. Rhythmic squeak thump of wipers fighting deluge. Her phone vibrates against her ear. Dr. Chen's voice, tense with urgency. "I understand this patient is in crisis," she hears herself say, "but I'm driving with my son. Can I call you back in 5? "Mommy," Elliot's voice from the back seat. "Do stars remember us, even when we don't remember to look at them?" A question deserving thoughtful response. Philosophical inquiry from a 5-year-old mind. Her eyes flick to the rearview mirror, his serious expression awaiting wisdom, instead of to the road ahead. Her choice, her responsibility. Headlights through rain. Blinding. Impact. Metal screaming against metal. Her body thrown forward. Airbag deploying half-second too late. The silence after. "You treat this like a case study in your textbook," Jamie Elliott says, now entirely child-sized, but speaking with impossible adult knowledge. Is that easier than admitting you chose the phone call over watching the road? The words DIETONATE inside her chest. Breath fracturing. Pulse arrhythmic. 300 days of defenses disintegrating. Post-traumatic stress with complete language fails completely. Her vocabulary, once armor against emotion, now meaningless sounds against memory's tide. Hospital corridor stretches infinitely before her. Antiseptic burning her nostrils. Time frozen at 2:37 a.m. The moment unchanged despite 300 days of scientific distance. 300 days of personal reflection spent deliberately not reflecting. She reaches for Jamie/Elliot, but her hands pass through his form, encountering only absence. Not hallucination, but memory materialized. I wasn't. The truth rises like floodwater, threatening to drown her. Clinical terminology evaporating. Harvard training useless against grief's undertow. I wasn't paying attention when it mattered most. Her hands shake uncontrollably. Blue ink flows across the floor, spreading from her pen, her notepad, her appointment book, all the places she's documented others' pain while refusing to acknowledge her own. My entire career, she whispers, helping others face what I couldn't bear to see. Mira finds herself kneeling on cold hospital tiles, forehead against sterile floor, professional identity dissolving in tears, suppressed for 300 days. I chose the phone call over watching the road. She confesses to emptiness, to absence, to irreversible consequence. The hospital corridor wavers, then dissolves. She's back in her office, familiar space rendered foreign by truth. Blue ink surrounds her, no longer threatening, but awaiting direction. Her diplomas, once sources of pride, now seem incomplete chapters in a larger story. She drives home through rain, no longer calculating statistical probabilities of hydroplaning, but feeling water against glass. Her clinical detachment, once armor, now recognized as barrier. Her hands on the steering wheel remember another rainy night, another drive, different outcome, same hands. Her apartment, meticulously controlled in whites and grays, appears through shifted perception. Not ordered, but empty. Not peaceful, but silent. 300 days of creating space that demanded nothing, remembered nothing, reflected nothing back to her. The hallway stretches before her. No more precise 60-degree turn. No more transient memory phenomenon diagnosis when vanilla scent registers. Tonight, she walks deliberately toward what she's avoided. The blue door pulses with its own heartbeat. Gentle rhythm, both inviting and terrifying. Blue light seeps beneath, casting underwater reflections across the floor. Her pulse accelerates. Tachycardia, 97 beats per minute. Old diagnostic habit. Same physical response. New understanding. She places her palm against the wood. Warm. Alive. An answering pressure, as if something, someone, presses back from beyond. I'm choosing to remember, she whispers, voice breaking, and turns the knob. Beyond isn't the sharp pain she feared, but a space where blues shift from midnight depth to dawn's gentle awakening. Stars hang suspended, constellations from a ceiling painted on a Saturday afternoon with small hands guiding hers. Not distant points, but presences casting soft illumination. The air carries forgotten scents. Vanilla shampoo, apple detangler, chocolate milk, before bedtime, piano notes drift through blue. Chopin nocturne, 4 hands at different octaves, laughter when they missed transitions. Elliot sits cross-legged beneath Draco, his favorite constellation, because dragons should get to live in the sky too. He wears the blue sweater with wooden buttons she'd helped him fasten that morning. When he looks up, His eyes hold both childlike wonder and impossible understanding. "You finally came," he says simply. "I was afraid," she answers, professional terminology inadequate for the ache in her chest. His small hand reaches for hers. Warm pressure, simultaneously present and preserved from before. "I've been here the whole time. I'm sorry," she tells him, words carrying 300 days of avoided grief. "I looked away when I should have been watching the road." He nods, serious expression, exactly as she'd seen in that final rear-view glance. "You were helping somebody who needed you. That's what doctors do. Not more important than you," she whispers, voice raw. He considers this with child's directness. Maybe not more or less, just different. Like how we needed different sides of the piano bench to reach all the keys. She hadn't expected wisdom from loss, hadn't allowed possibility beyond absence. "Remember when I asked about stars?" he says, looking upward. "If they remember us when clouds come?" She nods, tears flowing without clinical categorization. "They do," he says with certainty. "Even when nobody's looking up, blue light pulses around them, not invading, but connecting. Stars above and blue beneath, creating space between memory and presence, where healing begins. Your patients need you to remember too," he says, child's voice with unchildlike insight. "Not just me, but what happened." She nods, understanding forming from fractured pieces. Not compartmentalization, but integration. Not absence, but transformation. Not forgetting, but carrying forward. "I won't stop looking for you in the stars," she promises. His smile combines mischief with impossible wisdom. "Even when you forget, I'll remember. That's what stars do." When Mira awakens, dried tears trace her cheeks. Her office has transformed. Pearl gray walls now carry blue undertones that shift with changing light. Harvard credentials hang beside a child's drawing of constellations labeled "Me and Mommy's Star Map." The clock runs smoothly past 2:37, that moment acknowledged rather than avoided. On her desk sits a fountain pen filled with blue ink. Her deliberate choice now, not mysterious manifestation. Beside it, her appointment book with integration practice, replacing the blocks formerly labeled personal reflection. Not scheduled avoidance, but purposeful remembering. The phone rings. Dr. Chen about an urgent patient crisis. 300 days ago, she would have answered immediately. Today, she notes the time, 5:27 p.m. Elliot's astronomy club meets in her memory at 5:30. "I'll call back in 20 minutes, she tells the receptionist. "I have an important appointment first." She allows herself to remember for exactly 3 minutes. Blue sweater, constellation maps, questions about stars, before returning to professional responsibilities with renewed presence. Later that week, a new patient sits across from her, describing familiar patterns. After my daughter's accident, I created separate compartments, the woman explains, fingers tracing invisible boundaries on the armrest. Work Susan never mentions Emily. Mother Susan only exists on scheduled Sundays, when I permit myself to visit her room. Mira recognizes her former self in this careful division. 300 days ago, she would have praised this compartmentalization as adaptive coping. Standard protocol suggests emotional containment during grief responses. Mira pauses, feeling blue ink against her fingertips. She deliberately sets her manual aside. Protocols have their place, she says, leaning forward slightly, but they can't account for how grief rewrites our internal maps. Compartmentalizing doesn't actually protect us. It fragments us. Integration doesn't mean constant pain, but allowing memory to exist alongside present moment. The woman's eyes fill with tears. How? By acknowledging both your professional competence and your profound loss, not as separate identities, but as equally true aspects of who you are now. Later, Mira opens her own case file. She writes, "Subject demonstrates initial success in memory integration. Professional identity remains intact while accommodating emotional truth. Continued practice indicated." She pauses, then adds, "The stars remember us, even when we forget to look up." She signs the entry. Day 321. The blue ink catches light as it dries. Not the end of grief, but the beginning of carrying it differently. Death of the lilacs. I never should have opened that letter, but from the moment my fingers brushed the aged paper, thin and fragile, it seduced me. It all started on estate sale day. On any other Thursday, I would wake up crazy excited, strip out of my cotton PJs, and swap them for jeans and my gray V-neck, the one with vintage across the chest in fading white vinyl. I would appreciate the scent of the fresh lilacs that had just bloomed outside my window, their enchanting aroma drifting in as a passenger on the early morning breeze. Then I'd head out for a long, adventurous day of treasure hunting. There's something magical about rescuing a forgotten piece of furniture or trinket. It drives me, knowing that each piece will start a new life, absorbing new memories. It is intoxicating. But that Thursday, I woke up with an uneasy feeling that I immediately brushed off, assuming it was residual bad dream funk. Through my vintage lace curtains, I could see evidence of a cloudy day, doing nothing to brighten my spirit or improve my mood. And then there were the lilacs. This morning, their fragrance was thick, overpowering, and instantly turned my stomach. With an irritated mumble, I reached over and slid the window shut with a sharp thud. Pulling the blanket over my head, I heavily considered going back to sleep. However, 15 minutes later, I was dressed and headed out the door. Unheard of for me. It was as if I had somewhere urgent to be, but when I checked my calendar app, there was nothing booked. As I locked the door behind me, the heavy scent of the lilacs filled the air, overbearing and inescapable. They had sprung up from out of nowhere just a few weeks ago, their soft purple and white blossoms spilling over the wooden railing of my front porch. At first, I welcomed them, admired them, but now they felt invasive, their presence needling at my already fraying mood. I had been at the first sale of the day for about half an hour, and it seemed like a bust. After wandering from room to room, sifting through boxes and stacked containers of someone else's memories, I was just about ready to head to the next stop on my Google Maps list. As I stepped into the kitchen, I suddenly lost my balance and grabbed the long slab of butcher block countertop to steady myself. Instantly, my senses were overwhelmed. Years of long-forgotten Sunday morning breakfasts, afternoon bread proofs, and late-night Christmas cookie bakes. The heavy scent of bacon and coffee made me dizzy and hungry at the same time. I heard a child laughing and turned to see a little girl hiding her giggles behind a cupped hand as she pointed at Tom, chasing Jerry across the flickering screen of an old tube TV. Then a scream rang out, sharp and raw, echoing into my soul, almost as if it came from within. As I released my grip on the countertop, I spun around to see what had happened. Instantly, everything changed. The warm scents of breakfast were gone. The little girl, gone. The TV wasn't even plugged in, its frayed cord hanging eerily off to the side. It was just the humdrum sound of a normal estate sale, with people milling about and haggling the cashier with lower price offers. I just stood still, trying to breathe and make sense of what had just happened before I could grasp any ounce of stability. A sudden ding from the oven sent me nearly jumping out of my own skin. I bolted past the cashier and straight for the front door. Edith, I stopped. My feet, my heart, and my breath. Everything just stopped. My body turned and drifted past the "Watch Your Step" sign as I felt pulled down the wooden steps into the garage. It sat still, empty of people, empty of life, yet oddly full of the scent of lilacs. Why couldn't I escape it? I hadn't been in this room yet. I had peeked inside earlier, but it seemed full of things I usually ignored. Pesticides, old mulch, motor oil, nothing that belonged in an antique booth. Yet here I was, drowning in the scent of lilacs with not a bloom in sight. Why had I come? I wanted to leave. all at once, sunlight pushed its way through the clear glass windows of the garage door, spilling onto a small, frail woman seated at the desk in front of me. The same desk that, just seconds before, had been buried beneath years of dust and piled high with empty boxes. An old ladder leaning against one side. All of that was gone now, and I could smell breakfast again. "Edith, I work all day to put food on this table. You think it's gonna cook itself?" The dark voice boomed behind me. I flinched, but couldn't tear my eyes from her. The woman turned and looked right at me. And then, after just a second of recognition, right through me, she turned back to the desk and in a swift, almost frantic motion, shoved a piece of paper into an envelope. I heard her whispering something, but the words were too soft to make out. "Damn it, woman, where are you?" came the voice from the top of the stairs. My instinct was to spin around, to see him, but my eyes stayed fixed on Edith. She was facing me now, her gaze moving down the staircase as he came down. "You know better than to keep me waiting," he said, his words rolling down the back of my neck like sap oozing from a wounded sweet gum tree. I resisted the urge to wipe it away. Edith slid her trembling hands into her apron. Her gray eyes hovered just above my head, steady in his direction. Slowly, her shoulders curled back, pushing her tiny frame to stand tall. Her chin lifted just enough to prove her fortitude, but the slow rise and fall of her chest wasn't from resolve. It was control, each breath measured to contain her emotions. "Yes, I'm sorry. I should have been more mindful of your time. The bacon's on now. I'll have breakfast ready in just a few minutes." I could feel his heat standing uncomfortably close behind me. The hair on the back of my neck lifted with each of his heavy breaths as he considered his reply. Finally, he muttered, "You'd better." The sound of his heavy boots grew lighter as he moved toward the stairs. Her eyes were back on me, not through me. She stood still for a moment, as if thinking something through. Then, as if she had made her decision, she turned toward the desk and opened the top left drawer. She looked at me again, then down at the drawer. I followed her gaze. With a careful hand, she slid the bottom of the drawer back, pulled the envelope from her apron pocket, placed it in the hollow space, and closed the drawer. Her gaze shifted to me once more, her eyes trying to tell me a story, calling my name. Her mouth opened, her expression full of apology, but no words came. As she took a step forward, the sunlight caught the iridescent trail of a single tear that had run down her cheek. My heart hurt for her. All at once, she was gone. The sun had vanished. The windows on the garage door had been painted over years ago. The acrid smell of gasoline, oil, and pesticides flooding my nose once again. I gasped and wiped my face, realizing that I, too, had tears streaming down my cheeks. I took a few steps toward the desk, my eyes locked on the drawer. My pulse quickened as I reached out to pull it open. "Miss, do you need help?" came a tiny voice from the top of the stairs. I jumped and screamed. Then she screamed. With our hands over our chests, we both burst into laughter. "I am so sorry, doll. I didn't mean to startle you. It's totally okay. I was in my own world." I took a deep, slow breath, in and out. "Actually, yes, I would like some help. I'm interested in this desk, but I don't see a price on it," I said, pointing to the spot where the woman had just been sitting. "Oh, that old thing is junk, honey. One of the drawers is stuck, and it's missing a leg." She turned to head back through the door. I looked at the desk, then back at her. "All the same, I'd love to take it off your hands. Would you take 20 for it?" She stopped and turned around. Her expression shifted. I could see the dollar signs in her eyes and a slight hint of a smirk on her lips. Then, just as quickly, it changed again to a look of faux concern. "Well, that did belong to the homeowner, and I am trying to get the family top dollar. I couldn't possibly let it go for $20, but I imagine they'd be okay with 50. Does that work for you? $20 is usually my price point for old furniture. $20 and little to no damage, other than age. But she was asking 50, and it would need extensive repairs. Not that I was buying it for resale anyway. Honestly, I felt like I was out of mind when I agreed. But the next thing out of my mouth was, "Sure, 50 is great. Can I have someone pick it up in an hour?" Well now, that would be lovely. The edges of the woman's mouth curled into a slow, knowing grin, full of satisfaction, like a cat licking cream from its whiskers. 4 hours, 3 stops, and 2 cups of Java later, I was back home, where Jeff, my not boyfriend, was waiting in front of my driveway with the desk. "Sadie, what were you thinking? This is a piece of junk. Please tell me you got it for free," he grumbled as I slid out of my Jeep. He leaned against the bed of his truck, arms folded, looking cute, but not happy. "Oh, come on. You can see it has great bones," I said, resting my hand on the side of his face as I stood on my tiptoes and gave him a light kiss. He looked into my eyes, sighed, and wrapped his arms around me. "You owe me," I smiled. "Okay, where do you want this thing?" "Back porch, please. Why don't you go make us something to eat while I do your dirty work?" "You got it," I said with a wink. As I walked up the sidewalk, my stomach sank. The lilacs, so full and lush just hours ago, were dead. Their once vibrant petals had shriveled, decay clinging to them, burnishing the edges with shadow. Even though it felt morbid, I reached out to brush one with my fingertip. It crumbled to dust, carried away on the wind. I had enjoyed them while they lasted, until this morning. Now, an ominous feeling settled in my chest, hauntingly familiar, though I couldn't understand why. The scent had been overwhelming earlier, almost stifling, and while I didn't necessarily want them back, their sudden decay felt oddly personal. 10 minutes later, we sat on the back patio, eating lunch and staring at the desk. I debated whether I should tell him about what I had experienced earlier. We had been seeing each other for about 6 months, and things were going mostly okay. He didn't want to put a label on things, which felt like a little bit of a red flag. But I wanted to see where things went a little longer. He had some great qualities. Only time would tell if they outweighed the rest. I really did want things to progress between us, and they say communication is key. So I decided to tell him. As I told him the story, he ate his chicken salad sandwich and slurped his lemonade, his eyes fixed on me, except for the occasional glance at the desk. When my story was over, he wiped his mouth with one of my daisy-covered napkins, downed the rest of his lemonade, and said, "Well then, let's get this drawer open." He made quick work of the stuck drawer, and after searching for only a second, found the notch that slid back the false bottom. I couldn't believe it. The false bottom alone was a stretch, but seeing the letter sitting there in real life, insane. I reached into the drawer and picked up the envelope, my hands trembling just as Edith's had, but for different reasons. The paper was aged, its edges rough and slightly brittle. I turned it over, lifted the flap, and slowly pulled out the lilac-colored paper, careful not to damage it. Hauntingly beautiful. It was clearly handmade, bits of lilac petals pressed between its uneven fibers. Should I open it? I glanced at Jeff. He shrugged. "That's up to you." I wasn't sure. Edith's eyes had been haunted, and while part of me felt like I was meant to open the letter, another part couldn't shake the sadness in her eyes. It lingered, heavy and unsettling. Still, something pulled at me, urging me to open it. Before I even realized what I was doing, I unfolded the letter, top first, then bottom. One single line stretched across the middle of the page. "I wanted to warn you. I was trapped. I am sorry." I read the line again. A wave of dizziness washed over me. I could smell bacon. The room was spinning. My stomach was sick. Somewhere in the distance, Jeff was calling my name, but it was faint, muffled. The air was thick, damp and dank, clinging to my skin like old mildewed laundry left too long in the wash. I couldn't breathe. I closed my eyes and tried to remember my breathing techniques. In for 5, hold for 4, out for 7. Or was it 8? Damn it. But my slow, deep breaths came out rattled. Reaching for the chair, I sank into it, resting my elbows on the table and my head in my hands. If I could just get my thoughts together. All at once, visions of an entire lifetime slammed into me. Emotions crashed through me, too many to name. I felt joy, then sadness, heard laughter, then a baby's first cry. My baby's first cry? But everything was coated in darkness. I opened my eyes. The lilac-colored paper lay on the desk in front of me, blank. My hand involuntarily moved, picking up a pen from nowhere. My breath was stuck in my throat, as in horror, I watched myself write. I tried to warn you. I was trapped. I am sorry. Sadie, I work all day to put food on this table. You think it's gonna cook itself? Jeff's voice thundered from the top of the staircase, just beyond the door leading into the house. My stomach dropped as a wave of realization hit me so hard I would have fallen if I weren't already sitting. I turned to face the young girl behind me. I already knew she'd be there. My eyes met hers, and I only knew of one way out. With trembling hands and a heart heavy with guilt, I hurriedly stuffed the letter into the envelope. A single tear slipped down my cheek as I whispered, I never should have opened that letter. Rakotsbrücke, the Devil's Bridge. Rakotsbrücke, the Devil's Bridge. Whispers of mystery had long shrouded Rakotsbrücke, the legendary Devil's Bridge in Kromlau, Germany. Stories had swirled about its eerie perfection for generations, how its reflection in the still waters formed a flawless circle. Some believed it was merely an optical illusion. Others claimed it was something more, a portal to the unknown. Hans and Gerda Schmidt had grown up in the shadow of these legends. Their childhoods were filled with hushed tales passed down through the years, some dating back over a century. But the most chilling story was always the same. At certain times of the year, the bridge's reflection wasn't just a trick of the light. It was a gateway, and those who crossed it at the wrong moment were never seen again. Most dismissed such stories as mere folklore, but Hans and Gerda couldn't ignore the unsettling number of disappearances. Determined to separate fact from fiction, they spent months scouring old newspaper archives, compiling every recorded vanishing link to Rakotsbrücke. With each faded article, each cryptic account, a pattern emerged. If their calculations were correct, the next opening of the gateway was near. And this time, they would be there to witness it. Their research had uncovered a chilling pattern. The phenomenon occurred only once in winter, but was far more frequent during unseasonably warm periods in the warmer months. This week, temperatures were set to spike well above normal, and Hans and Gerda were convinced that the anomaly was bound to happen again. Armed with sophisticated audio and video equipment, Hans, Gerda, and several close friends set up camp near the bridge early Monday morning. Their goal was simple: capture undeniable proof of the anomaly. They weren't the first to try, of course, but they were determined to be the first to succeed. Each member of the group would take turns operating the equipment, ensuring the bridge was never left unwatched. Gerda was first. Luck would have to be on her side. She steadied the camera, framing the sublimely unsettling structure as it loomed over the river, its reflection dissolving into the rising morning mist. Days passed as the majestic bridge stood in solemn silence. Time was running out. By Thursday, tension had given way to celebration. The group partied, drank, and danced near the eerie silhouette of Rakotsbrücke, their initial excitement fading into the rhythm of the night. Laughter echoed through the trees, until a sudden burst of blinding white light shattered the darkness. A collective gasp cut through the air. Hans, Gerda, and the others sprinted toward the equipment, hearts pounding. Julio, the group's cameraman for that night, stood motionless, his camera locked onto the event. Then he sighed and shook his head. False alarm. They followed his gaze to the source. A biker gang rolling through the woods, their headlights gleaming off the water, engines rumbling like distant thunder. It was an illusion. The spacing of their bikes on the bridge and the reflection of their lights momentarily brought the bridge alive. From a distance, the bridge looked like a space portal had formed. Are you recording this? Gerda asked Julio. Never stopped. At least we can add it to the footage of our trip when we edit the video. The air deflated from their lungs. Shoulders slumped. Heads hung low. Disappointment settled over the camp like a heavy fog. By Sunday, hope had dried up completely. They packed some of their things, one by one, muttering the same defeated refrain, "We'll try again next year." Ever the optimist, Gerda climbed onto a picnic table, raising her beer in defiance. "I want to thank all of you for coming to witness what never was," she announced, her voice carrying over the quiet camp. "But tonight, we're forgetting about that damn gateway. Tonight, we party like it never existed." A roar of approval followed, and soon the music and laughter returned. None of them noticed the waters beneath Rakotsbrücke begin to shimmer. None of them saw the perfect gaseous cloud take shape inside the circle once more. Even Julio, who found himself once again on camera duty, did not notice the bridge coming alive. It was midnight, and the others were still lost in their revelry at the campsite. None of them was there to witness what was unfolding. He might have caught it sooner, if not for Fräulein Gretchen. She had been eyeing him since they passed his group while hiking on Monday. Now, as the others partied, she had cozied beside him, drawn to the quiet observer behind the camera. Since he did not drink, he had no problem operating the equipment, though tonight his attention was divided. That night, Julio had his blanket on the ground, Fraulein Gretchen and he were making out when he caught a glimmer of light out of the corner of his eye. Standing up immediately, he checked to see if the camera and audio were working. Gretchen was still playfully fondling his ear with her lips. "Stop. This is important. Can't you see what's happening?" he said to her with a stern but playful voice. "Look at it. It's getting brighter and brighter. Come on, let's get closer." The luminous gateway had a compelling allure, almost trance-like, and it kept tugging at their interest. At the river's edge, there was a small rowboat. They went down to the water, determined to get a closer look. Meanwhile, the light got bright enough to grab the attention of the others partying at the campsite. Hans was the first to notice the light. "Look, guys, the forest is beginning to light up. Must be responding to our partying," he said playfully. "No, I think it's the bridge," Gerda said as she took off, running toward Julio's location. The rest of the gang took off after her. There was no sign of Julio near the video equipment, and the forest glow was getting brighter and brighter. Gerda turned toward the bridge, her thoughts conflicting. She wanted her full attention to find Julio and not care about the bridge, yet the bridge was mesmerizing. Her heart was racing as the ominous light loomed large. "Julio! Julio!" the rest of the group yelled. The yells from her friends temporarily knocked her back to reality. She saw a small rowboat drift through the fog on the far side of the river. Her stomach clenched. That same boat was near them when they first set up the equipment on Monday, and it hadn't moved until now. "Guys, get over here!" Gerda's voice cut through the tense air. She was standing near the equipment. As they gathered around, she maneuvered the camera so everyone could see it. The camera began playback with the motorcycles, and they watched as the humming of the bikes slowly transformed the water. "Look at the water, guys. It appears to be vibrating. Would the sound waves have that big of an effect on the water?" Hans asked. "It must have," she replied as she zoomed in on the water. "When I go back and view the water, it is always completely calm. Something had to stir it." Gerda forwarded the camera to the moment the bridge came alive, and what they saw blew their minds. As they began watching, they heard a female voice. Stunned, Gerda rewound the tape, and sure enough, there was a flirtatious voice in the background. "Maybe Julio is at the nearest hotel?" A voice in the background whispered, drawing quiet snickers from the group. "Quiet!" Gerda snapped as they continued watching the video. Then they saw it. The gateway. "Look at the bridge! My God, it's real!" There's Julio and the girl," Hans pointed. They watched as the two made their way down the steep slope. Julio jumped in the boat first and turned to help Gretchen aboard. Freeing themselves from the riverbed, he slowly rowed toward the ominous, bright light, as if he were in a trance. Gretchen sat in front of him, leaning back on his chest, mesmerized by the gaseous light. They were approximately 30 yards from the gateway, and the recording stopped. "What? What happened?" Hans asked. "I don't know," Gerda replied. "No, this can't be happening," she shouted. She rewound the tape for a few seconds and played it back, but the same ending showed each time they watched. "Scheisse," Gerda exclaimed. "What do we do now? We have 2 people missing, and the tape shows us something, only up to the point where we think they have disappeared. What are we going to tell people?" "We tell the truth, Gerda. This is why we came here, to find the truth," Hans added. "But we don't have the truth. Only partial truths that add to the folklore. This tape will open up more questions than answers, and we will at the tail end of it, searching for more clues." Lynn, Gerda's best friend from London, walked over to her, put her hands on her shoulder, and turned her around so she could cry. Once Gerda's head hit her shoulder, she began to sob uncontrollably. Lynn knew the effect the events had on her. All the time and energy she put into this led to nothing but more questions. She also knew that deep down inside, Gerda wanted to see the gateway in action, even if it was at the cost of her friend's life, which made her feel even worse. Lynn lifted her head. "Hey, don't worry. You do have something far more than you ever had. We all know what happened here. Most of it is on tape. I say we immediately make a copy of this tape, take it to the police, and let them investigate their copy. And we have concrete evidence to examine on our own. Next time we are here, we will be much better off than before." Lynn's right, Gerda. We now know a lot more than we ever did. We know the vibrations from the bikes started the gateway. We know that we can't stare at it because of its trance-like powers. And we know the best time to be here and get another shot. Hans added. "Yes, that's right, Gerda," the others chimed in. 1 year to the day, the crew set up again. In honor of Julio, they set up a makeshift burial plot at the exact location where the camera stood last year. Gerda felt this new location was better. It was on the other side of the lake and had a better view. This time, the crew was on high alert. There was no partying this time. Their campground was just up the hill from the camera, and they could see partial spots of the lake and bridge from their tents. As they were finishing up with their tents, Lynn ran over to Gerda. "Look at those 2 over there, Gerda." She pointed. "No, that can't be." They took off running over the bridge, yelling, "Julio! Julio!" A young man turned around as they approached, staring at them, confused. "Yes, how do you know my name?" "Runaway Bride." Hopping onto a random train in the middle of the night was not the best idea Elise ever had. Not her worst, but a close second to when she was 13 and slept in the library overnight, only to wake up surrounded by cleaning pixies, surrounded by luggage and the smell of old clothes. She shifts her legs to avoid having them fall asleep before the train reaches the next stop. In other carts, there are no doubt people dining and laughing with glasses of champagne in their hands. She wishes she could join them in their revelry, but leaving her hiding space in a torn, dirt-stained wedding dress won't bring her the right sort of attention. Elise only wanted to be sure that no one had altered it without her knowledge, like her mother-in-law-to-be threatened to do when she failed to convince her to wear her gaudy dress from her own wedding. She didn't expect to hear screaming from the adjacent room when she tested how it fit. Glass bottles filled with wine for the guests breaking against the adjoining walls, the cries only stopping at the sound of a sickening thud. Her groom's voice only relieved her for a moment before she heard it discuss where to dispose of the body. She acted on instinct, opening a window and running until she found the train ready to depart. Tears come unbidden after what feels like centuries, thinking of only escape and surviving. Her plans of marrying the man of her dreams are now as broken as her heart. Her eyes grow heavy after her sorrow drains her of tears that further stained her once beautiful white gown. Not even the pain in her blooded feet could keep her awake as adrenaline faded from her body, replaced with exhaustion. Time passes her by as she slept, leaving her ignorant to the moment when the train stops and she's no longer alone. Someone large and strong grabs her, pulling her forward to the point where she nearly falls. Despite her panicked cries, Elise is dragged across the floor, her body already sore from her escape, her limbs unable to move from the mixture of fear and defeat. This is it, my end. They'll take me back to the estate, if not the chapel. My murderous groom will say I'm just a frightened bride with cold feet. And then it will be my body buried somewhere unknown. No one will know I'm missing until I'm nothing but bones. They take her into a train cart filled with people in fancy clothes, tossing her into an empty booth, her head falling against the window, exposing the darkness she used to cover her escape. She doesn't recognize the area behind the glass. Nothing but trees with no sign of human influence. Despite the throbbing in her skull, Elise turns her head to the gawking crowd staring back at her in confusion and horror, their meal interrupted by her unexpected entrance. Only a lone man in a trench coat and wide-brimmed hat has a neutral expression when looking at her. "Is this everyone?" the man asks a uniformed man, the one she assumes brought her here. "Yes, sir. All the passengers are accounted for, and our stowaway." "Any sign of the necklace?" "No, sir." The man in the trench coat sighs in frustration. Elise shrinks into herself as the eyes surrounding her seem to search through her soul. "Who is she?" one whispers. "I don't know. I don't recognize her." "Wait." Isn't there a wedding this morning? The Von Gray and Carlyle families, right? It can't be Elise Carlyle. She wouldn't be caught dead in such a state. Besides, why would she be running from her own wedding? They've known each other for years. Elise opens her mouth to explain everything. Yet no words would come. Try as she might, the only sound she can make is a strangled cry. The man in the trench coat walks down the small path separating the row of booths, hands behind his back in thought. Everyone else remains where they are, their panicked whispers filling the small space with dread. "Detective, what are your plans?" someone asks. "I already have the train staff searching for the missing jewelry. The conductor is aware of this, and I've informed him to keep the train here until the necklace is found. If the thief wishes to reach Bridgeway, they will have to confess. Otherwise, we'll wait until the local police arrive to interrogate everyone." The chatter rises to frustrated protests. The person who dismissed her identity, a middle-aged woman with a large hat decorated with silk flowers, rose from her seat. "This is preposterous. I have somewhere to be, and being fashionably late isn't an option. If I'm not in the pews at the chapel with the other guests, when the bride walks down the aisle, the shame will ruin my reputation and standing in society." The detective ignores her outburst to write down something in his notepad. The older woman, realizing her declaration failed to sway the detective, reaches for her purse, opening it and searching until she pulls out a hand mirror. Its metal frame shaped into soft vines with glowing stones for flowers. Elise recognizes her seeing mirror as the work of a famous artisan in Bridgeway, the place where the chapel awaited her, and what she once thought would be the start of her new life. The older woman leaves her seat, not making any effort to hide what she's doing from the detective or the other passengers. If he suspects something, he doesn't show it as he eyes the passengers. The older woman finds a small corner with an empty booth, turning her back to the others as she presses the flowers and whispers a few words to connect with another seeing mirror. Elise can only see a flash of light from the mirror before the detective takes position across from her, blocking her view. Care to answer some questions? Elise tries once more to speak. And again, only a sound of pain escapes her lips. The detective's hardened expression shifts slightly as she pretends to write with an invisible pen on the table. "Here, you can use mine. Now, first question. How did you get on the train?" Elise writes down a few words. "Open door. Got on before the train left." "And why did you get on the train?" "Running away. Heard a murder. Groom and groomsmen. Don't know who was killed, but was scared." "Your future husband and his groomsmen killed someone?" "What else can you tell me?" "Screaming, fighting, glass shattering, silence. Then groom says they need to hide the body." The detective continues to ask her questions, Elise responding with what few words she could conjure from her mind without fear settling in. When the interrogation is over, Elise feels hollow, yet despondent. The detective thanks her for her cooperation, moving on to a passenger in a heavy wool coat. Yet, before he could ask a single question, two things happen at the same time. A uniformed woman enters the train with a necklace of flawless diamonds in hand, and the older woman throws her mirror against the wall. The detective springs into action, reaching the staff member in seconds. The older woman turns her attention to Elise, her expression changing from rage to concern. She approaches Elise while the others are distracted with the reveal of the missing necklace. "You're Elise, aren't you?" Elise nods, hope rising in her chest. "Oh, I should have known." The older woman returns to her snobbish attitude in an instant. "Of course, when I connected to my cousin's mirror, she was certain nothing was the matter, or she would have told me. With this theft of your wedding gift, I worried I would be late, so naturally, I had to give the bride a proper blessing to alleviate the results of my tardiness. And when the mirror was given to the bride, you won't believe who I saw. Did the Von Gray family servants think so little of me that I wouldn't recognize one of them from the times I've spent with their mistress? The dress wasn't even embroidered." She pats Elise's head as if she were a child, while it swirls in confusion at the news. Poor thing, forced to play in a foolish man's game. No doubt he believed the veil would hide her identity until the priest declared them husband and wife. No matter, everything will be revealed soon enough. I told my cousin to inform your mother that your groom has a convoluted plan to wed another woman of a lowly station. Once we reach Bridgeway, all will be well. Elise is not certain the older woman's assumptions are correct, but the thought of salvation is enough to set her mind at ease. Once the train resumes its journey, the passengers return to a modicum of normalcy, talking about mundane things as they ate their now cold food. Elise's own appetite returned as she dined with the older woman, as she spoke of the scandal that will erupt once the truth is revealed. With time, the wheels break upon the rails as the station of Bridgeway comes into view. The familiar face of her mother, eyes stained with sorrow, light up once Elise races onto the platform into her warm embrace. Veil of night. "I've said too much," Caroline exclaimed. She snatched her rain-soaked black denim jacket from the chair and turned to go. "Caroline, wait!" Hank caught her hand. Her slender fingers felt chill and damp against his. "You can't expect me to believe." "No," she murmured. "No one would. And that's the point. It was useless even coming here. I don't know why I did." Hank squeezed her limp fingers, giving them a shake. "Please, let's start over," he said, motioning for her to sit again. "This cult, it's a coven. The Sisterhood of Unhallowed Light." She fidgeted with a lock of damp, auburn hair stuck to her pale forehead. "Right. the sisterhood. So, a few women who get together and play at witchcraft? There are 12. They wanted me to join, and I thought I wanted that too. But Caroline caught her bottom lip between her teeth. The midnight hue of her black lipstick was a stark contrast to the pallor of her skin. She took a breath, and the words tumbled from her. I feel seen by them, like they really get me. They accept me. They celebrate me, just as I am. And what they offer, the sense of belonging, the knowledge, power. I thought, why shouldn't I? A flash of lightning lit the rain-spattered window, with a crack of thunder following close behind. Caroline's eyes grew large with panic, and she twisted in her seat to look outside. There are things we shouldn't play with, she whimpered. I know that now. I've completed 2 of the 3 initiation rituals with the sisterhood. And you're saying this torrential rain we've been having these past 3 days is part of that? That's awfully biblical, isn't it? This isn't hurricane season, Hank. He shrugged and twisted his mouth in a half-ways grin. With weather patterns these days, who can tell what season it is anymore? It was me. It was the sisterhood. It's part of the ritual, part of the summoning. Coincidence, that's all. She clutched his arm where the sleeve of his t-shirt ended, digging her cold, clammy fingers into his bicep, and pleaded. You wouldn't say that if you knew what I've done, what I've gone through to make this happen. Caroline, she let go of Hank's arm and fumbled with the top buttons of her black shirt. Yanking one half of it to her left side, she exposed part of her chest. A long vertical slash was bisected by a shorter one, forming an inverted cross over her heart. The 2 slashes stood out as angry purplish-red marks on her otherwise smooth, pale flesh, and were knitted together with black stitches. They made me promise my heart to Valthus, the formless entity of writhing darkness whom they worship. Hank stared for a moment, then sputtered. Valthus? Your heart? Come on, Caroline. What? Am I supposed to believe they've cut out your heart? Isn't it usually the soul these sort of fanatics are after? Caroline grasped Hank's fingers in her trembling hand and placed his palm over the wound on her chest. Her skin was unnaturally cool. He held his hand there for a moment, then brought his fingers up to her throat, feeling for a pulse. Another clap of thunder startled them both. Hank pulled his hand from Caroline's neck. He stared at her in disbelief, saying, This is some kind of joke. A prank. It's not real. How could you be here telling me all this if they've taken out your heart? I don't know, she sobbed. But I think I've made an awful mistake. You've got to help me. Promise you won't let them take me. No, of course not. Where would they take you anyway? A hospital? It's an abandoned old church, Blackthorn Chapel. They want to take me there for the final ritual, Caroline said. To complete the summoning of Valthus They need to make an offering of the heart. But aren't you supposed to be joining them? Becoming one of their coven? This sounds more like a sacrifice. Yes, it does. They told me it was my initiation. But Caroline trailed off, turning to stare at the rain beating against the window. In a low whisper, she continued, "Now I'm not so sure. That's why I'm frightened." The blinding flash of light lit up the nearby window, and a deafening roar of thunder shook the house. A loud crash followed. Nearby, a car horn began sounding, repeating its alarm annoyingly. Hank leapt to his feet and crossed the room to look outside. Christ, that was close. The tree next door has split nearly in two. Some of its limbs have fallen over a few cars on the street. The lights inside the house flickered. Once, twice, and a third time before plunging them into darkness. "I'll get some candles," Hank said, cursing as he caught his toe on some piece of furniture. He fumbled his way to the kitchen. "Just need to find my phone so I can light the way." One more thunderclap boomed overhead. A sudden blast of wind swirled through the house. Footsteps pounded across the floor. Caroline shrieked, and there were sounds of a struggle from the other room. "No!" Caroline cried out. "I won't go! Hank, don't let them take me." Hank stumbled from the kitchen and could see down the hallway to the front door. It was swung wide open, and the wind and rain swept through in howling gusts. "Caroline?" Hank called out. He heard glass shattering all around him. The back of his head felt like an explosion had gone off, and the world tilted and shifted into slow motion. Hank sank to his knees. His vision was filled with a combination of swirling stars and inky blackness. The sounds of frantic struggle moved away from him as his hands slapped the carpeted floor. He struggled to breathe and clear his sight as he held himself from pitching forward onto his face. "Caroline!" he shouted. His head throbbed viciously, and he thought he might be sick. From outside, he heard car doors slamming, and a vehicle roared to life. He struggled to his feet and made it to the front door. Through the sheets of rain, he saw the burning glow of red tail lights receding down his street. Pursuit wasn't an easy option. The tree limbs, which had fallen over several cars, were blocking Hank's car as well. He slashed at them with a hatchet he had stowed in his camping gear. The rest of the fallen limbs tore at the side and undercarriage of Hank's car, but he managed to break free. He swore and cursed some more. The lousy cell service the storm had left him with made searching the internet difficult. After several minutes, he found directions to and a description of Blackthorn Chapel on a website promoting ghost walks in the city. Once a place of worship, the old chapel had fallen into disrepair, and the ground beneath was, so the locals claimed, cursed. It took nearly an hour to detour around storm debris and reroute past streets that had been rendered impassable before he arrived at his destination. If he'd paid the $50 for the Ghost Walk tour, Blackthorn Chapel would have rated 5 stars. It was surrounded by an overgrown and tangled hedge of blackthorn shrubs, buffeted by the wind and rain. The gnarled limbs seemed to claw at the twilit sky, as though grasping at something unseen. The crumbling stone walls were cracked and weathered. The roof was partially caved in, showing an outline of jagged edges that looked like the jaws of some wild beast snarling or snapping at the heavens. And the heavy wooden doors were worn and splintered and hanging slightly ajar on great rusted iron hinges. The jet-black gloom beyond the entrance seemed more of warning to sensible folk rather than an invitation to step inside. But if there was any chance he might save Caroline, inside was where Hank needed to be. He passed through an opening in the rough hedge, careful not to let the thorns sink their barbs into him. Walking in through the front entrance, he'd decided, would be courting failure. He might as well put his head through a noose. Instead, Hank crept around to the side of the run-down property, searching for another way into the chapel. Lightning lit the horizon several miles off. The brief flash revealed to him that he was creeping through a graveyard, which was part of the chapel grounds. Most of the headstones were crooked, sinking into the ground. Some had fallen or been knocked over. Many lay half-buried in tufted humps of wild grass. With a sense of dread, he picked his way carefully through the tangle of ancient stones and grass until he was out of the graveyard and could lean against the chapel wall. His heart was pounding as he panted silently, trying to catch his breath. Above the howling of the storm, a sound caught his ear. Soft at first, but regular, insistent, and coming from inside the chapel. Hank strained to make out what he was hearing. It was definitely chanting of some sort. Hank edged along the stone wall to the back of the crumbling old building. The ground sloped down, revealing the foundations of the chapel. He spotted a break in the wall and rushed to it. It was a narrow space, but large enough, he felt, to squeeze inside. Before he did so, Hank hefted the hatchet in his hand. He couldn't imagine actually using it to hack away at some unseen coven member. That would be slasher movie extreme. He twisted it around in his hand so that the square end faced out, becoming his weapon. He sucked in a few deep breaths, questioning his sanity. Then he scraped and squeezed his way through the narrow space. Feeling his way around in the dark, Hank discovered a series of long wooden boxes. Great, he thought. Could this night get any spookier? He'd found his way into the crypt. It took him a few minutes to pick his way around. but he eventually found a set of stairs leading to the proper part of the chapel. This was one of the cloisters, or side chapels. The chanting was more distinct. He could make out the words, "Valthis, Valthis, veil of night, drown the stars, consume the light from the maw, where silence dies. Open now your 1,000 eyes." He edged carefully toward a gap in the wall, which entered into the chapel's nave. There were broken pews scattered throughout the space, casting long shadows from the candles, which lit up the altar at the front. Shadow deep and shadow wide, stretch the fold, let worlds collide. What was whole? Let it decay, let the void now have its way. He saw Carolyn, bound and gagged. She was wide-eyed and frantic, struggling to break free of her bonds. Unseen horror, whispered breath, we call you forth. We offer death, one by one, we fade. We kneel, take our names, unmake us real. A quick count revealed only 8 figures in hooded robes surrounding Caroline. He thought she'd said they were 12 in number. But this would be better odds. Hank hefted the hatchet in his hand one more time, feeling as confident as a person could ever be faced with such a scene. He took one step forward, but that was as far as he got. He was grasped from behind, his arms, legs, and even his torso in the grip of unseen talon-like hands. With swift force, they pulled him backwards, throwing him off balance. A ragged cloth was pressed over his nose and mouth. He struggled and tried to scream. Then blackness engulfed him. When he came to, Hank found he was now stretched out over the altar. His hands and feet were bound. Looking up, he could see eerie shadows playing across the vaulted arch above. "I'm sorry, Hank," Caroline said. "I had to do it." He snapped his head around in the direction of her voice and saw she was standing to his left. She held a long, curved dagger in her hands. The other coven members, all 12 of them now, were surrounding him. We needed a heart to complete my initiation and call down Valthis." He thought he'd known fear earlier in his pursuit of Caroline's attackers. Now, a choking sensation that felt like ice was spreading through his chest. In his head, Hank shouted Caroline's name, but the gag in his mouth prevented him from getting that or any other words that followed out. The coven members began to chant once more, "Valthis, Valthis, veil of night, drown the stars, consume the light." The white door, it's been locked since the day we moved in. No one can find the key anywhere. Nobody has a clue if and what it leads to if they could access it. It's a locked door with no key, and it sits in the middle of our bedroom wall in the room I share with my younger sister, Chloe. It's a strange, plain white door with the number 13 written on the top of it, also in white. It merges in completely with our white wall. Even the door handle is white, making it blend in so well. It's almost invisible, and most people completely miss it. When one of us that can see it point it out to them, they appear perplexed. It seems only a few of us are able to see it. I could have said, it's like a picture of a door painted onto the wall itself. But on closer inspection, it is slightly indented, and the white handle sticks out a little from the wall in a 3D effect. Chloe, along with my parents, claim not to be able to see it, and that I'm making it up in my imagination. But my older brother Felix claims to have not only seen it, but opened it when we first moved here. You opened it? Yeah, once on my 13th birthday, a couple of years ago. What did it lead to? And what did you do with the key? It didn't lead to anything. Flory, just the inside of a brick wall, and there was no key. It was unlocked already. Then how did it get locked? I don't know, Flory. Maybe Mum or Dad locked it? You can hardly blame them. What's the point of having a doorway to the inside of a brick wall? There wasn't even a corridor or secret passageway. I'd forget about it if I were you. It's completely pointless. Probably someone's idea of a laugh or something. You know, to catch nosy people like us out. Why would Mum and Dad lock it and pretend they couldn't see it? I thought to myself. The mystery of the door growing deeper in my mind. Don't get me wrong, Felix's discovery on opening it did make total sense. After all, the wall it was a part of was one of the two outside walls of our room. The one next to it was the window wall, as we like to call it. But like Felix said, why on earth would you want to have a door that led to the bricks of your house? Surely the builders would have just put a complete wall there, like all the other rooms. It also didn't explain the jingly musical sound and singing voices that came from behind the area of the door on a night, or the light that shone underneath it, lighting up the darkness. I'm pretty sure I've also heard other voices from behind it, too. Nothing spooky, sounding just happy and giggly, almost like there are children on the other side of the door, playing. It gives out a nice vibe when I hear them, leaving a smile on my face. Flory, earth to Flory, you're daydreaming again. Sorry, Chloe. What was you wanting? Mum asked what you want for dinner. The options are spag bowl or chicken curry and rice. Ugh, neither. I'm not even hungry. Whichever you want, Chloe. You are gonna eat it though, right, Flo? My little sister questioned me suspiciously. Sure, maybe. I don't know. I'm still full from lunch. I might just grab a salad. Yeah, tell Mum I'll get myself a salad. I quite fancy that. Chloe looked unconvinced, but left the room to let Mum know anyway. A while later, Mum came and tapped on the bedroom door. Flory, can I come in? Sure. I've made you up a chicken salad, like you asked for. But I have to say, I'm getting worried about you. You're not eating properly. Though I understand salads are a good choice, you also need to be eating other things. Mum, you don't need to worry. I'm okay. I'm just not fancying the same food I did before. And salad is a healthy choice, especially as you added the chicken. Well, okay, I'd like you to come and eat it with me. I'm having one too. We need to sort your birthday party out. I don't think your guests will want salad as their only choice of food, do you? I don't know. A salad birthday cake sounds healthy to me. I giggled, the reply, something I hadn't done for a while. This made her smile as we both went to the dining room to eat. The chicken salad was good, and I agreed to have a chocolate cake for my birthday party. I didn't really have the heart to tell her that I didn't want a birthday party, and no one would come anyway. She seemed more excited about my birthday than I did. A week later, my birthday was finally here. And while my parents and sister were busy putting the decorations up, I called Felix over. There was something I wanted to know from him. As we went to my bedroom, I could already hear the children's voices again. They seemed to be singing something, but I couldn't tell what. Do you hear that? Hear what, Flory? The singing? It's coming from behind the door. Not really, but it does look a bit different. Look, the 13 is standing out 3D like the handle. It was like that when we moved in before I opened it. It's your 13th birthday, Flory. It can't be a coincidence, can it? He put his ear up against the door to try and hear the voices. Looking back at me, he suddenly gulped and said, Flory, you're right. There is someone on the other side of the door. They're calling for you, but I thought you said it was just bricks behind there. It is. Well, it was when I opened it. I slowly creeped over to where he was at the door. What should I do, Felix? I don't know. Maybe you should try and open it? I don't have the key, remember? Neither did I. When I opened it, remember? I just grabbed the handle and pulled it down. Give it a try. What do you have to lose? Okay, but please hold my other hand. I don't want to do this alone. You don't have to, Flory. I'm right here with you. Okay, here goes, ready? I grabbed Felix's hand and pulled down the handle. The door swung open. Sure enough, it looked like nothing was there but a brick wall. Then I heard it too. Flory, help me, Flory. I had no choice but to risk hitting the brick wall as I stepped inside the doorway. Just in front of me was a winding downward staircase made of stone steps. I looked behind me and saw my room again. But who was calling me? And how did they know it was me? I made a decision. I was going to go down the staircase and find out who it was. I turned back again to see the door closing. Wait, no, don't close it. I thought you was coming with me. I am with you, Flory, once on this side. The door closes until it's time to return to your party. Quick, let's go. Felix made his way down the staircase and out of sight before I could have a chance to think. How did he know that? He said it was only a brick wall. Had he actually stepped inside and been here before? Felix, wait. Flory, we help Flory. There it was again. I'm coming, I replied, and started descending the stone staircase slowly. as I wasn't sure it wouldn't make me slip. I hoped Felix was all right. He had practically ran down them. "Felix, are you still there?" "Hello?" No response. Even the other voice had gone quiet. As I got lower, I could hear a dripping sound begin. Drip, drip, drip. It started slowly and sounded like a long drip each time until it eventually sped up into a drip, 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 drip. By this point, the stone stairway was also damp and starting to become completely waterlogged at my feet. I wasn't sure I could actually go down any further when the voice started calling again. "Flory, help Flory." It was sounding more desperate. "I'm nearly there. Where are you?" Just as I went to take a step down into the water, I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Not that way, Flory. You'll drown if you go that way. Follow me this way." "Felix, why didn't you go slower and stay with me? I knew you'd find me, Flory. Come on, give me your hand and step up onto this ledge on the right." I had been so focused on not slipping down the stairs, I hadn't bothered to look around me. I grabbed Felix's hand again as he helped me up onto the ledge. I paused to look around us. We seemed to be in a cave. The walls were solid stone. Looking up, I could see stars glinting above. At least they looked like stars. But unless it was a dormant volcano or other cave with an outside view, they were probably not stars. Maybe we were in a diamond or crystal cave, seeing them glinting above. Or maybe that was the dripping water droplets. Either way, it was so beautiful. I felt my breath catch in my chest at the sight. The water I had almost stepped into appeared to have a fast current, and I was glad Felix had been there to guide me to the ledge. "Where to now?" I asked eagerly. "Follow me. It's this way." The ledge wasn't very wide and was a little slippery, but we got there slowly. When we reached the end of the ledge, Felix lifted me down, pointing in the direction we were going to next. It was very bright, almost blinding. I lifted my arm to shield my eyes as I looked towards what I guessed was the sunny outside. I wasn't far wrong. We stepped out into a beautiful summer's day. There were flowers, trees, lovely green blades of grass with a beautiful silver water fountain in the middle. Swings on the trees, a pool. Children were playing happily, skipping, dancing, and singing around. Some were making daisy chains, while others were making buttercup chains. The lyrical sound of birds chirping and singing. The whole place gave me a peaceful feeling, just like a happy dream. Only this was a real place I'd come to from my bedroom, down the stone staircase into a summer's garden. So I had heard children laughing and singing through the white door. "Yes, you had," Felix replied, almost secretively. "Why don't you come and meet some of my friends?" He beckoned me to follow him again. "Your friends? But you said there was nothing but a brick wall behind that door. How can you have friends here already?" He glanced at me with a comical expression on his face that said, "Seriously? You need to ask?" But all he said was, "Follow me, you will see." I stepped onto the grass with him and started following as we got to the silver water fountain. I heard the voice again. "Flory, please, Mom." "Dad, Flory, help." I glanced into the fountain and saw Chloe in tears and me on my bed. She was shaking me, crying, looking helpless. Mum and Dad rushed into the room. Suddenly, my breath caught again in my chest. I could feel the pressure as Dad pumped 119-223, and Mum was breathing into my mouth in between. I felt the warm breeze flow down my throat into my lungs. The white door appeared on my left. Felix was still on my right. The fountain still in front of me. "Felix, what's going on? You have to choose Flory. Come with me and meet my friends this way, or go back through the white door to Chloe and our parents. Choose Flory before it's too late." "But I don't understand." "Felix, what about you?" "I'm always with you, Flory. Stay with me now, or go back to Chloe before the door stays closed." Without another thought, I bolted towards the white door, my heart beating hard in my ears. I jumped through it into my bedroom and onto my bed, turning to see the door slowly closing, with Felix still behind it, smiling and waving goodbye. "Felix!" I cried out, bolting upright on my bed. "Flory, Flory, you died. Flory, you wasn't breathing. I couldn't help. I'm so glad you came back. I couldn't bear to lose you too." Chloe sobbed. I held her in my arms, soothing her as she stained my top with tears. Mum and Dad looked like they had seen a ghost, their faces as white as the door that used to be on my wall, but had completely disappeared as it had closed, taking Felix with it. "Did you shout out Felix when you came back, honey? Was you with Felix when you were gone? Is heaven real?" My mum seemed to have a million questions. "Don't be silly, dear. Felix died on their birthday 2 years ago. He drowned in Glitter's Cove. He can't have been with her. Once you're gone, you're gone. Isn't that right, Flory?" I wasn't sure what to tell my dad, or who to answer first, so I decided to answer them both at once. "I don't know about heaven, Mum, but there seems to be a peaceful, happy place. And yes, Felix was with me." "Dad, Felix is always with me. I'm his twin, remember? The N under the kitchen sink." Spoiler, but a scare warning. MC and other characters talk about being knocked out and a near death from a spider bite. Very mild. Fictional story, but based on Orthodox Christian spiritual warfare. It was a Saturday afternoon when I was 13. My friend Lila and I were playing hide-and-go-seek at her house. Lila was my new friend, but she was fun to hang out with. I also had a friend named Aiden. He was my best friend since I was little, like really little. He looks the same age as me, but he always acted a lot older, He was scared about me going places I shouldn't, and that I should be careful. But he said that a lot with Lila, because I never told my mom about me visiting her. But I thought, as long as I got back between the 2 hours I got off school and she got home from work, she would never find out. Lila counted while I tried to find a hiding spot in her big, empty house. My feet echoed as I ran around, and then I found a room under the stairs. I giggled as I closed the door and hid in between some old clothes, a vacuum, a laundry hamper, and the washing machine. "Torrent, D930, ready or not, here I come!" Ain't no way she is going to find me here. I bet she's afraid of the spit. "I found you," she yelped as she opened the door. "What? How did you find me?" This had to have been the best hiding spot. Lila waved her hand and said, "That's not the best one. That one is quite easy to find." I got up and dusted my pants off. And as I walked out, I closed the creaky door. Then I asked her, "What is the best hiding spot?" Now, why would I tell you that? Because then you would know how to find me. But do you want to know? But the way she said it, it made me really want to know. "Please, please, please tell me. I won't hide there. I just want to see it." Lila whipped her dark hair and tapped her finger to her chin. "You may not want to hide there, but you will probably stay there for some time when you see it." I was confused, but it still made me want to go even more. "Follow me, my friend," she said, reaching for my hand. We went past the front door of her house and through the entryway to her kitchen. I hopped on the white tiles as I followed her, and she let me go. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Mm-hmm," I nodded excitedly. She then reached into the pocket of her black coat and pulled out an old key. Then she walked to the weirdest spot ever, her kitchen sink. She bent down to this big lock and fat chains and popped the key in and turned it like it was easy. Then she slowly opened the doors, but with a smile that was weirdly excited for me to see it. And once the doors are opened, I hear a loud whooshing sound and what looked like a big black hole. Whoa! How come I've never seen this before? Has anybody seen it before? Oh yeah, a lot of people have, but only people who choose to listen to me instead of, well, don't mind that. Go ahead and go inside. But where does it go? It won't hurt, will it? I don't want to do things that I know I shouldn't and get hurt. You'll be okay, you promise? Lila said. Look at all the fun games we play together behind your mom's back. Trust me, this is what you want. I felt scared, but I wanted to believe her. I took a few steps toward the sink, and the closer I got, the closer I felt like it was pulling me in, and it was harder to get away. Dee Dee, I heard a voice from above me. Huh? I look up and get a push back from the sink, and the doors slam closed on their own. Before I looked at the voice, I got a quick look at Lila who quickly put down her foot like she was going to do something, but she didn't want me to see it. I turned around, and in the window above the sink, I saw Aiden looking at me. He had reddish-brown hair, and when the sun hit it, it looked like it was a bright fire. He said with a worried face, "Why are you here? I warned you not to come here." "Oh, we were just having a little fun. You'll get hurt." Before I could say anything, he looked over to Lila and said, "What are you doing?" "Exploring." "Why do you have to ruin the fun?" He answered, "You are a stranger." "A stranger?" "Me and Dee Dee are best friends, better friends than you. Clearly, she makes more time for me than you. Besides, how long have you known her for?" "Since she was baptized." Lila seemed really mad at his answer. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to hurt Aiden's feelings, but I really wanted to have fun. When I looked at Aiden again, he already looked like he was sad because of what she said. And I was scared that what she said was true. I didn't want it to be. I glance over to the big, old clock on the wall and realize that my mom would be home any minute. I look at them both and say, "I have to get home." Aiden told me, "Maybe you should tell your mom about this." I shook my head and said, "No, she would get so mad at me." Aiden didn't seem to like that I said that, but said, "Your choice. Dee Dee, your choice." Then he walked away from the window. I ran home as fast as I could. And thankfully, I got there just in time. I don't think my mom knew at all where I had been. I just acted normal, and we enjoyed dinner together. She even asked, "So how was school today, honey? I heard you had a hard time on the test." I knew I could have done better, but I felt so sleepy. And I think it was from not telling Mom about Lila and keeping it a secret made me tired and not think well. "It was decimals," I told her. She put her fork down and said, "But you're so good at decimals." She looked confused and said, "Dee Dee, you seem to be having a hard time in school lately. Not just with the test, but with things you know, and know really well." I felt warm. I had to come up with something without telling my secret. "I've been doing extra homework, so I stay up late and get sleepy." She didn't seem to like that very much. "Listen, Dee Dee, I want you to be doing your homework when you get home from school, not late in the night. You need your sleep, and you should have plenty of time after school to do it, right?" The whole time she talked, I kept thinking about Lila's kitchen sink. What was under there? Where did it go? Was it really as bad as Aiden made it out to be? "Dee Dee, Dee Dee." My mom snapped me out of my thinking. "Look, hun, you need to finish up and go get some rest. Homework in the afternoon and sleep at night. That's all." I got on the bathroom stool to brush my teeth, and I went to say my prayers. As I did, I had a really bad feeling that I didn't usually have. I felt bad about how I treated Aiden earlier. I hoped he still wanted to be my friend. I turned the switch on my small blue lamp. And as I went to bed, I threw the covers over my head. My blonde hair got in my face as I curled up, confused about my day. Psst! I didn't think anything of it and closed my eyes tightly. Psst! That time was too loud. I threw my blanket off to look around my room. Then I saw someone in the window again. But it wasn't Aiden. Lila stood on the roof outside my window and said, "Hey, you're up." "Lila? What are you doing here? It's past my bedtime." I began to speak in a whisper as I looked really quickly toward my cracked bedroom door. "My mom might still be up. Bedtime, schmed time. It doesn't matter as long as you don't get caught. Don't you want to see that portal?" But Aiden said not to. Lila rolled her eyes and said, "Aiden isn't saying that because he is worried. Aiden just doesn't want you to have any fun." "But come on. You don't want to be a scaredy cat, do you? You can do what you want. You wanted to see the hiding spot yourself. Remember?" With the last word, she said, her eyes lit up. But it wasn't in a good way. I really wanted to see what that black hole was. Maybe she was right. I can do what I want. We were back in her kitchen. She had led me out of my house by a rope she tied to the roof, and I had no idea where it came from. "Are you ready this time?" she asked. I nodded, even though I was really scared, and my heart beat faster than it had beaten. She opened the cabinet doors again, and I was greeted by the loud sound and twirling portal. I slowly tippy-toed toward it. Closer and closer and closer. Then Lila pushed me. She grunted. I screamed the loudest scream, and I don't think anyone heard me. As I began to fall down into the dark space, I saw a ledge and held onto it, trying not to let go, because I knew if I fell any further, no one could help me. I turned around, and the last thing I saw was Lila. But it wasn't Lila. She had turned into a nasty creature with horns and a long tongue, and her eyes did the same thing they did when she came to get me from my house. That's what happens when you mess around where you shouldn't while passing on. And she closed the cabinet. I screamed and screamed and screamed, but it just echoed at me. I yelled for someone to help me, but no one was there. I should have listened to Aiden. I yelled again, now crying loudly. I should have listened. The last thing I could think of was to say a prayer. I knew I felt guilt the last time I prayed, but I knew I still had to. I pulled down my nightcap with one hand, but quickly put my hand back on the ledge. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Slam! The cabinets swung open, and there I saw what looked like an angel. Who are you? It's me, Aiden, but you don't look like... Then it made sense. He acted older. He knew me since I was baptized, and he was always trying to keep me safe. You're my guardian angel? One hand slipped, and I was holding on by one hand. Take my hand, and I can help you." I struggled to pull my hand up. I pulled and pulled, and finally, I slapped mine into his, and he pulled me out within the blink of an eye. And again, the cabinet slammed shut. He grabbed me to help me brace for the impact as we hit the floor. I gasped and slowly got up, feeling like I was just beaten up. What just happened? Where is Lila? What did she mean by passing on? Dee Dee, you saw. Lila isn't a human girl. She's a demon, and she went back where she belongs. And I am your guardian angel assigned to you. I've been trying to keep you safe. You almost died. You are knocked out at the moment, and soon you will wake up. I thought my next question would be, how did I die? But he answered before I could ask. The first time you came towards the portal, you were near a nest of spiders, poisonous ones. And because you had disobeyed, and how close he had become to Lila, you put yourself in a very dangerous position. But I pulled you away. This time around, one bit you, and it was almost enough to kill you. But thank the Lord you prayed when you did, before it was too late. Or we'd be in a different situation. I thought about it. If I had passed, it would have been 3 days, and then it would have been the toll houses. And I certainly wasn't ready for them yet. I was shocked. But this is all happening, right? How about hide and seek? What happened with that? It still happened, but you were the only one who could see Lila and me as well. But the portal itself exists, but not in the way you thought it may have at first. I stood there and sat back down. What do I do now? What I've told you to do is be honest and listen to those who are trying to protect you. We stopped talking for a minute. I needed to take a moment to think about what happened. We both looked at the moon, and my last question was, when will I wake up? Just keep looking up, he said. Your mom will come to find you here safe. And will I see you again? He looked at me and smiled and said, just continue to live as you should. I will always be here to protect you. In the name of the park, they say you never really know what someone is like. Not truly. Life has a funny way of showing you. Coincidences, they call them. Those little twists of fate that seem too good to be true. Like how, just as the park started filling up with the wrong kinds of people, they all began to disappear, one by one. Strange, isn't it? I've lived here for decades, in this little house with its flower boxes and its white shutters, watching the seasons change, watching the people come and go at the park across the street. For so long, the park was perfect. Flowers bloomed each spring, and the trees provided shade for the frolicking that took place under them. The good people were always there, the ones who respected it. There was Mrs. Calloway, who had walked her poodle, Franz, at the same time every morning for 20 years. There was George, the retired schoolteacher who read his newspaper on the same bench while sipping his thermos of coffee. The mothers with their strollers, the elderly couples arm in arm, the joggers who nodded politely as they passed. These were my people. But then the bad ones came. First, it was the teenagers, those little delinquents with their cigarettes and their loud music, loitering around the swings, leaving their garbage behind. They carved their nonsense into the benches, foul words that I won't repeat, marking their territory like stray dogs. I scolded them at first, wagging my finger, telling them they should be ashamed. They only laughed. They had no respect for anything. Not for me, not for the park, not for the memories of the good people who had been there before them. But they weren't laughing for long. Then came the couple, the awful couple, who would play disc golf and argue the entire time. He was a burly man with a voice like a fehorn, and she was a waifish thing, shrill and unrelenting like a bird. They didn't just argue, they screamed. And I even think they smoked marijuana. I would try to enjoy my walks, but their voices would pierce through the trees, ruining everything. Clem, Ollie, and Marcus, my Yorkies, would cower in fear as they approached us. It was always about money, or about some other woman, or about how she was ungrateful. And he was a brute. She used much more colorful language. The sound of their discs clattering against metal mixed with their venomous words, polluting the air. Their presence felt like a stain on what should have been a sanctuary, a place of peace. I could almost hear the park groaning under their weight. And then there were the worst ones of all, the dealers. I noticed them sneaking into the park, lurking by the back benches where the trees grew thickest. They wore hoodies, their eyes darting around as they exchanged small bags for crumpled bills. I knew exactly what was happening. I'd seen enough crime reports to recognize the signs, and to think they were doing this when there were children and teenagers in the vicinity. The neighborhood wasn't safe anymore. My park wasn't safe. I saw them whispering to people who passed by, shifting anxiously, always watching their backs. I knew their kind. I had seen the stories on the news. Violence always followed them, and the police did nothing, and yet people ignored it. They walked past, either too afraid or too indifferent to say anything. I called our local police station, and they only told me they would send an officer to check it out. I will tell you, this did not happen. As I watched from my window and saw no police officers in the area, I did report this as well. But I knew the truth. If you want something done right, you must do it yourself. I had to do something. You can never judge a book by its cover, they say. People look at me and they see an old woman, slightly hunched, dressed in my sensible sweaters and shoes, walking my 3 little dogs. They see my tidy house with the white shutters and the flower boxes, and they assume I am exactly what I appear to be. They don't see the woman who was married to a cruel man for 20 years, who learned how to endure, how to be patient, how to bide her time until the right moment came, who realized sometimes something must be lost to be gained, as was the case in preserving peace for my 3 sons. They don't see the woman who grew up on a farm, who learned early how to break a chicken's neck in one swift motion. They don't know how strong my hands really are. Desperate times call for desperate measures, don't they? The teenagers were first. It wasn't hard. One of them, a particularly mouthy one with a sneer that made my blood boil, was walking home alone one night. It was almost too easy. A single strike with the tire iron I kept in my shed, and he crumpled like a rag doll. He and his friends did not hang out at the park after that, so far as I could tell. It was strange how quickly the others took the hint. The arguing couple was next. I followed them, listening to their voices rise in fury. They were on the edge of the park, past the old fence, where no one went anymore. She was crying, and he was yelling, his voice shaking the leaves. I didn't even hesitate. A push was all it took, just one push, and his big, lumbering body toppled over the edge of the ravine. The silence was so sudden, it was almost beautiful. It was as if the park could finally exhale. She turned to me, eyes wide, lips trembling. I thought she would scream, but she didn't. She ran. And I let her, because I knew she wouldn't tell. Women like her know better than to cross women like me. And maybe she will use this second chance to make some better life choices. The dealers were harder. They moved in groups, cautious, always looking over their shoulders. But people like them, they get greedy. They trust the wrong people. One by one, they fell. Each disappearance, a small victory. The police didn't even look into it too hard. Junkies, they called them. No big loss. I made sure they disappeared quietly. A little patience, a little careful planning. No one questioned it. You wouldn't suspect I could even be capable of these deeds. The park is quiet now. The good people have returned, along with the lilac blooms and the koi fish in the pond. Mrs. Calloway walks Franz without fear. George reads his paper in peace. The mothers push their strollers without looking over their shoulders. Their babies have grown and play freely on the park equipment without having to read rubbish. Soon, a new batch of these little lambs will be springing about. The joggers smile again. It's so nice that the park has cleaned up, they say. Feels safe again. Isn't it amazing that all those rough types just stopped coming here? I wonder what happened. Mrs. Calloway mentioned yesterday, as we paused to dispose of our dog droppings before exiting the park. I smile back, but then, just as we step onto the sidewalk, I notice something. A new teenager sitting on the swings, head down, hoodie pulled tight, just sitting, watching. I grip the leash in my hands, my knuckles whitening, because it is safe, and I intend to keep it that way.